Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
The year 737, Universe 7, planet Vegeta. Night fell, a crescent moon hung in the branches, the sky was dotted with stars, and occasionally a few spaceships streaked across the sky, leaving behind shimmering trails. Aunt Jin, I'm back. Beryl looked up at the sky, and then a childlike voice rang out, gently knocking on the Bardock family's door. Creak. The door opened, revealing a beautiful face with a hint of nervousness in her eyes. Belie, let me see him. Jin immediately pulled Belie into the room and looked him up and down, her expression full of worry. What's wrong, Aunt Jin? Belie was slightly taken aback, a little confused. I heard that a very scary guy went to the palace today. He seems to be a cat and he's like some kind of god of destruction. Even King Vegeta treated him with utmost respect. He didn't do anything to you, did he? Jin asked worriedly and checked Belser's body again. I'm fine, Aunt Jin, Beryl grinned. He didn't give me any trouble. That's good, that's good. Jin patted her chest, letting out a long sigh of relief, and then said, I heard that guy known as the God of Destruction is particularly picky. Did he enjoy the food you cooked? He didn't eat. Beryl shook his head. Why aren't you eating? Is it because it doesn't taste good? Haim asked, her brows furrowed in surprise. He was probably too busy bullying King Vegeta. Belie shook his head, slowly walked to the window and looked up at the night sky over planet Vegeta again, a serious expression appearing on his slightly childish face. The day of planet Vegeta's destruction is drawing ever closer, but how can I leave this planet? In his previous life, Belie was a die-hard Dragon Ball fan. After learning of Toriyama's passing, he suddenly felt that his youth had unknowingly slipped away. How long has it been since I last looked at the Hainan edition Dragon Ball comic book that's been treasured in my drawer? This Dragon Ball manga series accompanied Belie throughout his youth. To reminisce about his lost youth, Belie reopened his somewhat worn-out comic book, only to become increasingly engrossed, reading from his first encounter with young Goku all the way to the grand finale of the Buu saga. As Goku and Oob left the bustling World Martial Arts Tournament venue, his smile seemed to bear the marks of time, as if every expression accompanied his life's journey. Next, Belie flipped through the newly bought Dragon Ball Super manga. Although it wasn't drawn by Toriyama, it was still passable. Especially the last one where Bick waves goodbye to the camera. It's said that Sai personally revised the storyboard. A day and a night had passed when he looked up and Belie fell into a deep sleep lying on his comic book. When Belie woke up, he found himself transported to planet Vegeta and became a newborn Saiyan named Spinach. Shortly after Belie was born, his parents left planet Vegeta to fight on another planet where they unfortunately perished. Bardock and Jin's family were very close to Belser's parents, and Belie and Raditz were born on the same day and at the same hour. From then on, Jin took Beryl into her home, took care of him, and accompanied him as he grew up. 5 years have passed in the blink of an eye. However, to Beryl's dismay, this body was really weak. 5 years have passed and there's still no system, and no cheat codes. No matter how hard Belie trained, his combat power remained hovering around 100. Definitely a low-class soldier. No. They're not even basic combatants. He can only be considered a support staff member. However, Belie felt something was off. He seemed very strong, but his combat power just wouldn't increase. That's outrageous. Moreover, this powerful opportunity seems to be missing something. As for what is missing, Beerus has no idea. Belie knew perfectly well that not long after, planet Vegeta would be destroyed by Frieza himself. When that time truly comes, Belie will die along with the destruction of the planet. Belie once tried to leave this planet, but planet Vegeta has a strict hierarchy, and with a fighting power of 100, obtaining a spaceship is simply a pipe dream. Moreover, if they were to secretly leave this planet, they would inevitably be hunted down and executed. The only way to leave planet Vegeta is today. Bells had been waiting for this day for a long time and had made many preparations, all in anticipation of the arrival of Wise and Beerus. If these two foodies were to come to planet Vegeta, they might be able to win them over with their culinary skills. It's worth mentioning that in his previous life, Belie had gotten tired of eating takeout, so he decided to cook all sorts of delicious food himself. Unexpectedly, this opened the door to a new world, and the food he cooked was even more delicious. In this life, as a Saiyan, Belie also possesses extraordinary culinary skills. Although only 5 years old, he has become the royal chef, cooking delicacies for the royal palace. Belie naively believed that Wise and Beerus would be overjoyed to come to the royal palace on planet Vegeta and taste the delicious food he cooked. Then there's a high chance they'll take me away from planet Vegeta. Alternatively, having Weiss give you some guidance on cultivation would also be a good option. But man proposes, God disposes. Wise and Beerus did indeed visit the royal palace on planet Vegeta today, but they did not eat the food cooked by Belie. Beerus didn't touch a single bite of any of the food that was served. Beerus was puzzled. Even though the food I cooked smelled so delicious, this gluttonous cat didn't take a single bite. Perhaps Beerus was too busy being angry to enjoy the food. The reason for his anger was that Beerus asked King Vegeta to find him the most comfortable pillow in the universe. King Vegeta found it but kept the pillow for himself while giving the second most comfortable pillow to Beerus. Beerus was furious. He stomped on King Vegeta's head and rubbed it on the ground for over an hour, so angry that he didn't eat a single bite of food. Seeing that Beerus was in a bad mood, Belie naturally didn't go up to provoke him. That would only hasten your death. To Beryl's relief, however, was that the moment Wise and Beerus left the palace, Wise packed up all the food and took it with him. In other words, there's a certain chance that Weiss will come back to pick me up. If I could train under Weiss, even if I'm just a low-ranking warrior, I would definitely make great progress under the angel's guidance. Belie, it's getting late, you should go and get some rest, Jin said softly. Where's Raditz? Belie asked casually, snapping out of his reverie and realizing Raditz wasn't home. Raditz has become a combatant, teaming up with Prince Vegeta to fight on alien planets. Jin sighed softly. That child has always had a bad temper, liked to fight and cause trouble, always making me angry and never wanted to stay in this house for even a second longer. Wai felt a little uneasy. Raditz, at only 5 years old, already has a combat power of 500. At this age, with a combat power of 500, he has already been officially rated as a superior warrior. Of course, this is on the premise that there will be even greater improvements in the future. The reason he was rated as a superior soldier was based on his age and potential. Raditz was born a low-ranking warrior, but through his own hard work and training, he became a high-ranking warrior at the age of 5. It's fair to say that Raditz was quite outstanding as a child. But who knew that Raditz's highest combat power throughout his life was only 1500, and his status as a superior warrior was just a fleeting moment? Incidentally, it's worth mentioning that anyone with a combat power of 300 or higher, ranging in age from 3 to 70, can apply to become a combatant and go on expeditions to outer space. Unfortunately, Belie only has a combat strength of slightly over 100. Unable to become a combatant, it's difficult to leave planet Vegeta. Beryl pushed open the bedroom door and slowly walked in, his tail swaying gently behind him. The moment she entered the bedroom, Belie noticed the baby care machine in the room. A child who looked all too familiar appeared before Beryl. He is none other than Goku, the protagonist of Dragon Ball and also the future Goku. Sun Wukong is only 3 years old now, and he has been growing up in a childcare machine since birth. The moment Kakarot saw Belie appear, his bright eyes widened and he waved at him while grinning foolishly. Hee, Kakarot is saying hello to you. Jin walked over with a smile and waved to Kakarot from the transparent cover of the baby nursery. Kakarot, grow up quickly. Belie smiled and made a face at Kakarot. Kakarot grinned, his smile widening. Sometimes I really feel like Belie is Goku's real older brother, Jin sighed sincerely. When Goku was first born, Raditz was a little curious about him, but now he probably looks down on him for being a low-class warrior. Every time I go home, I don't want to look at him. Kakarot will definitely grow into an outstanding warrior in the future, Belser said with a smile. I don't really want Kakarot to become a warrior. That would be like Bardock, always fighting on the front lines, barely coming home a few times a year. Jin gently shook her head, a hint of sadness appearing on her beautiful face. The universe is so vast, there are always races stronger than the Saiyans. Who knows, he might die in battle on another planet someday. Besides, the Saiyans will one day pay a heavy price for the evil they've done, and also I haven't heard from Bardock in a long time. It'll be alright, I believe Bardock will come back, Beryl reassured him. Actually, Beryl is already very outstanding. At the age of 5, you have already become the head chef of the royal kitchen. In another 2 years, you might even be promoted to the chief chef of the royal kitchen. Jin stroked Beryl's head and spoke gently. Aunt Jin, you don't need to comfort me. Belser gently shook her head. What Saiyan doesn't want to be a fighter? As he spoke, Belser stepped forward again and waved to tease Kakarot. I'll try practicing properly again later. We absolutely cannot sit idly by and wait to die. Knock, knock, knock. Just then, there was a knock on the door. I'll go open the door. Belser quickly went to the door and opened it. Appearing at the door was a plump female Saiyan. Belser recognized her. She was Jin's neighbor named Naza, and her husband Riku was Bardock's teammate. Oh, it's Belser. Is Jin home? The obese Saiyan Naza grinned and greeted her. Aunt Naja, is there something you need? Belsbel asked directly. It's nothing serious, just need to borrow a Malkazak egg. We don't have any at home, Naja said with a smile. Belser. Belsanin was already aware that Naja frequently came to their house to borrow things. Today I'll borrow a Tatarata poppy, tomorrow I'll borrow a Malhaza bird egg. Marhaza bird eggs are basically chicken-like things. Tatata poppies are similar to onions on Earth. Of course, it doesn't matter if it's such a small thing. The question is, what did you do during the day? It's Naza, come in quickly. Jin greeted her politely, then turned to Bell Racer and said, Bell Racer, go get the Marhaza bird eggs. Okay. Belser didn't refuse and took 2 Malhaza bird eggs and handed them to Naja. One is enough. Naja took a Malhaza bird egg. Take them all. Belser placed another Malhaza bird egg into Naja's hand. Haha, then I won't be polite. Naza laughed, carefully putting away the Marhaza bird egg, and casually asked, Jin, I heard Raditz applied to be a combatant and was rated as a superior warrior, teaming up with Prince Vegeta to fight on alien planets. I'd rather he were like Belie, finding something to do on planet Vegeta, Jin replied with a smile. We're the Saiyans, a fighting race, so of course we all want to become combatants and go out into battle, Naja said with a forced smile. Unfortunately, my talent isn't that great, so I can only serve as a support staff member. Jin didn't reply but looked up at the time. It was already past 11 p.m. time to rest. Belsi, where's your little sweetheart Borakoi? Nazara asked casually. I heard they went out to fight as a team, Beryl replied casually. Belsi, I heard a really scary guy went to the palace today. What kind of god of destruction is he? Did you see him? Naza asked with a gossipy look on her face. Obviously, this was the key point she wanted to know. Her earlier mention of Boroko was just to set the stage. I glanced at it from a distance and it really is terrifying. Beryl nodded slightly, offering only a perfunctory reply. It said that even King Vegeta didn't dare to breathe heavily in front of him. I never imagined there was such a terrifying god. Naja kept exclaiming. Yes. Beryl smiled but didn't continue. After all, Jin had already signaled to Naja to leave based on the time. But this fat woman was completely oblivious. But you know what, Jin, Belsae is starting to look more and more like you, haven't you noticed? Naja looked at Jin, then at Belsae, and suddenly said this out of the blue. Really? Maybe it's because he's been with me since he was little. Jin smiled, her manner polite. Jin, do you think there might be a malfunction in planet Vegeta's system and that Bels and Raditz have switched identities? Bels is your biological son while Raditz is Podai's son? Naza suddenly had this idea, her eyes shining as she spoke. Jin was speechless. Bersi was speechless. Has planet Vegeta's system malfunctioned? You're quite the talker. There has never been such a precedent before. Haha, I was just kidding, don't take it seriously. Naja laughed heartily again, her chubby cheeks jiggling. After chatting for a while longer, she stood up and waved. "Ah, it's getting late, you guys should get some rest, I should go back too." Jin saw Naja to the door and waved goodbye. "No need to see me off, Jin, you should get some rest, you have to go to work tomorrow, right?" Naja said politely. The next day before dawn, Belie got up at about 4 a.m. Washed up and ate a little breakfast. Jin personally adjusted Belser's combat suit. "Belie, you're going to the royal palace, so be extremely careful. Besides, you're already the head chef and you're still so young, some people might be jealous of you and deliberately make things difficult for you." Jin earnestly advised, then added seriously, "However, if anyone really bullies Belie, you must endure it, wait for Bardock to return and then we'll retaliate." Belie, Beryl nodded obediently without arguing. "Kakarot, I'm going to work." Belie waved to Kakarot, who was in the baby care machine in the inner room. Kakarot wakes up at this time every day, seemingly knowing that Belie is going to work. Kakarot grinned, showing his teeth. Beryl left home and strode towards the palace. As he moved forward, Beryl felt a little disappointed. "Weiss still hasn't come back to pick me up. It seems he's not coming back. Is it really because my cooking is bad? Logically, that shouldn't be possible. It seems we'll have to think of another way to leave this planet. Aunt Jin is so good to me, it would be perfect if I could find a way to take her off this planet." Beryl arrived at the palace and began his day's work. "My morning task is to prepare breakfast for the royal palace." Belie quickly got to work. The vast starry sky, the boundless universe. Smack! A planet suddenly shattered like a soap bubble, instantly turning into nothingness, leaving not even a trace. "Oh dear, Lord Beerus has already destroyed 10 planets, Weiss said with a laugh. Beerus yawned, stretched, and his eyelids drooped. Looking exhausted, he said, "I can't go on anymore, I've reached my limit, I've destroyed 10 planets, let Frieza handle the rest, I need to go back to sleep." "Has Lord Beerus already assigned Mr. Frieza to destroy planets?" Weiss asked. "It's all arranged, let's go back quickly," Beerus said, yawning incessantly, his eyelids drooping as he leaned against Weiss's back. "I'm going to take a nap." "Well then, let's head back." Weiss smiled, and together with Beerus they transformed into a streak of light as dazzling as stars, flying swiftly towards the planet Beerus. After flying for a while, Weiss suddenly remembered something and took out the food he had packed on planet Vegeta from another dimension. "I remember the food in the royal palace on planet Vegeta. It looked and smelled very unique, so I packed some back. Lord Beerus, would you like to try some?" Weiss asked with a grin. Beerus, however, did not respond. Weiss turned his head and was shocked to find that Beerus had fallen into a deep sleep. "Oh dear, since Lord Beerus is asleep, I'll enjoy it all by myself," Weiss said, picking up a chicken wing and taking a small bite. After taking that bite, Weiss's eyebrows immediately started dancing. "Wow, this is the first time I've ever tasted such unique chicken wings." Weiss's eyes sparkled and he excitedly waved his arms and legs. Beerus, however, had already entered a deep sleep, his body pressed tightly against Weiss's back. "Lord Beerus, would you like to try some? It's really delicious," Weiss asked, turning his head. Then Weiss saw Beerus drooling. Weiss quickly stepped aside to avoid Beerus's spittle landing on his shoulder. "Oh dear, it seems Lord Beerus is not fortunate enough to enjoy this." Weiss sighed with a smile, then casually picked up a slice of pizza and examined it carefully. Then, Weiss quietly took a small bite. The next moment, Weiss's eyebrows began to dance and bend again. "This is delicious. What is this thing?" Weiss ate with great enjoyment. After enjoying several delicious meals, Weiss sighed repeatedly, then said to Beerus behind him, "Lord Beerus, what a pity. We should have had a proper meal at the palace. I never imagined planet Vegeta would have such delicious food. I've never encountered anything like it on my previous visits." Beerus didn't speak and was already snoring. They flew forward for a while longer. Weiss suddenly saw 2 different colored lights flashing not far ahead, a dazzling light like a star. One of them was a purplish-red flame. The 2 beams of light gradually approached and quickly stopped in front of Weiss. "So it's Lord Rumsey." Weiss immediately bowed to him, then Weiss looked at one of the female angels next to Rumsey. "Hello, Sister Kess," Weiss greeted Kess. Appearing before Wise were an angel and a god of destruction from the 10th universe, Angel Kex and god of destruction Rumsey. Angel X is an angel who looks as cute as a little girl. She's not very tall and her figure, well, she's definitely in a cup. She has blue skin and an exceptionally sweet face. Rumsey, the god of destruction, is a humanoid creature resembling a pink elephant with a long trunk, a tall and imposing physique, and a fierce look in his eyes. Is Beerus asleep? Rumsey stared wide-eyed at Beerus, who was sleeping with his chin resting on Wise's shoulder. Yes, Lord Beerus has entered a deep sleep, Wise said with a smile. I'll demonstrate for my sister and Lord Rumsey. As he spoke, Wise took out a chicken wing and placed it near Beerus's nose. Beerus sniffed hard, drool dripping down his face. Wise immediately stepped back to avoid getting saliva on his shoulder. Then, Rumsey and Kirsten witnessed Beerus floating in the starry sky, drooling incessantly and yawning repeatedly, his appearance utterly ridiculous. Heh. Kyr's eyes curved like a blooming flower. Rumsey then burst into laughter. However, as Rumsey smiled, he felt something was amiss. The next moment, Rumsey's laughter stopped abruptly. Hey Kirsty, you're not going to torture me like this when I'm sleeping, are you? Rumsey seemed to realize something and his face immediately darkened. Oh dear, how could that be? Lord Rumsey, you're overthinking it, Kirsty replied with a grin, covering her mouth with her hand. Rumsey remained silent, his suspicions growing stronger. Those angels are so wicked, they like to keep our god of destruction as pets. I like to play with my pets when I have free time. That's outrageous. HMPH, if I find out you treated me like this while I was sleeping, I'll never forgive you, Rumsey shouted, his elephant trunk swaying wildly in his excitement. No, hee. Kirsty laughed even harder, her laughter like the song of a lark. Weiss gave Keith a knowing smile. Rumsey's elephant trunk trembled slightly, his bad premonition growing stronger. Why are you two laughing so slyly? But speaking of which, Lord Rumsey, Sister Kex, what brings you to Universe 7? Wise asked with a smile. It's nothing. I was a bit bored in Universe 10. I originally wanted to come and hang out with Beerus, but he was sleeping like a log. Rumsey snorted, showing deep contempt for Beerus. Oh dear, what a coincidence, Weiss nodded. By the way, Weiss, what were you going to give Lord Beerus to eat just now? Cuss tilted her head curiously, looking at the chicken wing in Weiss's hand. These are chicken wings, you can try some, sister. Weiss handed the chicken wings to Keith. Change it. I won't eat anything a cat has sniffed. Curse waved her hand. Weiss had no choice but to take out 2 more chicken wings and hand them to Keith and Rumsey respectively. They each tasted it. After taking a bite of the chicken wing, both Kirsten and Rumsey had stars twinkling in their eyes. It's so delicious. This is the first time I've ever eaten anything this good. Kirsty's eyes were full of surprise. Fragrant but not greasy, the flavor is very unique. Rumsey nodded in satisfaction. It's a pity Lord Beerus won't be able to eat it. Judging from his sleeping position, he'll be asleep for at least several decades before he wakes up, Wise said with a smile. What a pity. Kirsty chuckled as she savored the chicken wing, then held the leftover chicken bones close to Beerus's nose. Beerus sniffed and saliva started dripping from his mouth again. This is so much fun. Kirsty's eyes crinkled into crescent moons as she laughed. Weiss, where did you get these chicken wings? Rumsey asked. On a planet called Planet Vegeta, you can go there sometime and try it out. It's in the royal palace on that planet, Wise answered truthfully without hiding anything. I'll definitely go when I have time. Kirsty nodded slightly. Well, I'll take Lord Beerus back to rest now. I won't stay here with Sister Kreese and Lord Rumsey any longer. Wise waved his hand. Okay, you go ahead with your work, Kirsten replied. That boring Beerus, all he does is sleep, Rumsey snorted. I clearly remember the last time the Omni-King played hide-and-seek, this guy hid and fell asleep. The Omni-King was so angry he almost wiped out several universes, and we gods of destruction had to use all our strength to calm him down. Just thinking about it makes me angry. That happened a long time ago. It's rare that Lord Rumsey remembers it so vividly, Weiss said with a smile. HMPH, it's all Beerus's doing, Rumsey snorted angrily as he thought about what had just happened. I'm leaving now. Wise didn't say much, grabbed Beerus by the back of his collar and transformed into a streak of light as dazzling as a star, quickly disappearing from sight. After Weiss left, Rumsey turned and looked at Keith. What are Lord Rumsey's plans next? Are you thinking of moving to another universe? Kirsty asked with a smile. Let's wander around Universe 7 first, Rumsey snorted. A planet Vegeta, royal palace, royal kitchen, another workday has come to an end. Beryl had had enough of this kind of work, which involved working at least 16 hours a day. I get up at 4 a.m. and don't finish my workday until after 10 p.m. If this were an ordinary person, their body simply couldn't handle it. Belie strongly suspects that King Vegeta is definitely a big capitalist who really knows how to exploit the working people. Beryl originally took the job mainly to attract Weiss and Beerus. As it turned out, neither of them took the bait. Beryl felt he needed to rethink his life. The day of planet Vegeta's destruction is drawing ever closer. If we don't leave now, it will be too late. Looking at the time, Bersai realized it was already past 10 p.m. Beryl left the palace and quickly returned home. Aunt Jin, I'm back. Beryl knocked on the door as usual. The door opened and Beryl saw a towering figure standing before him. Bardock appeared before Berserker. Bardock glanced at Beryl expressionlessly and said calmly, "Come in." Okay, Belie was a little hesitant. To be honest, Beryl had gotten used to living with Jin and had come to regard her as family. Now that there's suddenly someone else in the house, Beryl feels like an outsider. After all, no matter what, Bersai is truly an outsider. Aunt Jin, I came back specifically to tell you that I still have work to finish at the palace today, so I won't be staying here tonight. After saying this, Belie turned and left. Bardock just returned today and the couple, having been apart for so long, were reunited. Beryl certainly didn't want to be a third wheel. Besides, Beryl was becoming increasingly anxious. What does it mean that Bardock is back? This indicates that Frieza's destruction of planet Vegeta has officially entered the countdown. Planet Vegeta will be destroyed in no more than a month. Wait a minute, Bardock suddenly said. Belgrade stopped in his tracks. Belie, Bardock and I have always treated you like our own child. Please don't treat yourself like an outsider, Jin said softly. As for the work at the palace you mentioned, isn't that just an excuse to leave? Beryl fell silent, looked up at Jin and found that her eyes were clear and not just empty words. Bardock didn't say a word but stepped forward and placed his hand on Beryl's head, ruffling his hair and making it messy. Belie. Heh, Bardock is a warrior, he doesn't know how to coax children. Jin chuckled softly. Belie, don't mind him, it's nothing. Beryl shook his head, because Bertha could sense that although Bardock looked expressionless, his gaze towards him carried a hint of kindness. Generally speaking, children have this ability. They can easily tell who treats them well and who doesn't. Belie, you're back just in time. There's something very important I need to discuss with you. As Jin spoke, her expression grew increasingly serious. What is it? Belie asked, taken aback. Before you came back, Bardock and I had already discussed it and planned to send you and Kakarot to other planets. Jin's eyes reddened, but she held back her tears. Huh, Belie was stunned. At that moment Beryl was both surprised and delighted. So, does this mean I can go to Earth with Goku? Berset immediately looked at Bardock. Bardock didn't show much expression, only nodding slightly to Beryl, his eyes carrying a hint of fatherly affection. Bertha could sense that Bardock was serious and not joking. At that moment, Beryl felt a deep sense of emotion. No wonder he's Goku's father. If there are any good Saiyans, it must be Goku's family, except for Raditz. Belie, listen to me. Jin stepped forward and pulled Belie to sit down. Bardock heard something when he came back. Frieza is searching everywhere for Super Saiyans and Super Saiyan God. These days, more and more Saiyans are returning to planet Vegeta. Bardock said he has a bad feeling that Frieza might harm us Saiyans. So Bardock and I have carefully considered the matter, and you and Kakarot leaving planet Vegeta as soon as possible is the best option. I'm going to steal a mini spaceship. You and Kakarot are small, so you can squeeze into one ship without any problem, Bardock said, quietly pushing open the door, then quietly closing it again and disappearing into the night in a flash. Watching Bardock's departing figure, Bersai's eyes reddened and tears almost fell. Beryl never expected that Bardock and Jin would agree to send him and Kakarot to another planet. You guys really raised me like your own son? Belie, these are all just guesses from Bardock and me. You should leave planet Vegeta first. If we're overthinking it, we'll bring you and Kakarot back immediately, Jin said softly, trying to comfort you. Beerus nodded vigorously. I waited for about 10 minutes. Bardock quietly pushed open the door and gave Jin a meaningful look inside the room. Jin immediately went to the baby care machine and took Kakarot out. Kakarot is already asleep. Jin, holding Kakarot in her arms and Belie by the hand with her right, stepped out. Belie spotted the spherical spaceship parked at the entrance at a glance, and a surge of excitement welled up inside him. Are we finally leaving this planet? Something feels off. Beerus felt uneasy. Jin secretly placed Kakarot inside the spaceship. Stay close to me, Belie, Jin whispered to Belie. Beerus nodded. Bardock said nothing, stepped forward, picked up the spaceship and flew into the sky. Jin pulled Belie close behind. Before long, Belie came to a deserted area with towering rocks. Speaking of which, the fact that you're worried about Belie and Kakarot is so unlike a Saiyan, Jin said with a laugh, breaking the silence. I guess I caught your naivete. Bardock said casually, glancing around to make sure no one was watching, then slowly descended from the sky carrying the spaceship. Kakarot seemed to have been startled awake and immediately began to cry and scream inside the spaceship. Knock, knock, knock. Kakarot even kept pounding his fists on the spaceship's hull. Stop fooling around, Kakarot, Jin said to Kakarot. Beryl stepped forward and made a face at Kakarot. Kakarot grinned, revealing his teeth, and then quieted down a little. Belie has a way, Jin smiled, then her expression turned serious. Bardock, why don't we escape with them? It's no use, the detectors will find us soon, Bardock said, then gave Belie a deep look and explained. Belie's combat power is only a little over 100, he'll be fine. But once our combat power exceeds 300, we're considered combatants. Jin, actually with your combat power you're perfectly capable of going out and participating in combat. I don't like fighting, I only like doing logistics. Jin chuckled and shook her head. Besides, my combat power is only a little over 600, which at this age only qualifies me as a low-ranking warrior. Bardock said no more and opened the spaceship's hatch. As soon as the spaceship hatch opened, Kakarot leaped out of the spaceship and pounced on Belie. Kakarot, stop fooling around. When we get to the alien planet, listen to your brother Belie Saint. Jin ruffled Kakarot's hair, then gently patted Belie Saint's shoulder. She went over to operate the spaceship and explained, the program is set to go to a distant planet called Earth. There's plenty of food there, but the people and resources aren't very valuable. It's actually a good, unremarkable planet. Beryl gave Jin a deep look with a complicated expression. As expected, we're going to Earth. Belie, hurry up and take Kakarot up there, Jin urged. If it's just Bardock and me worrying unnecessarily, Bardock will come to Earth to pick you up soon. Bardock is a combatant. When he goes to fight on other planets, he can easily come to Earth and bring you back. Belie's expression turned extremely serious. He picked up Kakarot and put him into the spaceship. However, Beryl did not go in, he remained outside. Belie, hurry up and get on the spaceship, Jin urged again. Once we get to Earth, tell Kakarot not to stare at the moon for too long. I'm not going, Beryl shook his head decisively. Why? Jin was taken aback, looking at Belie with some confusion. Bardock was slightly taken aback and silently looked over. If I were on a spaceship with Goku, we'd most likely be shot down by Frieza's men, Belie said with a determined glint in his eyes, adding with a wry smile. After all, my power level is already 100, which would easily attract Frieza's attention. It's all right, didn't Bardock say that with a combat power of only 100 you're not even considered combatants? Frieza won't make things difficult for you, Jin reassured her. I've made up my mind, I'm staying, Beryl said firmly. Belie didn't want Kakarot to perish because of him. Just as Belie had predicted, if he were to actually be crammed into a spaceship with Goku, there was at least a 90% chance they would be shot down by Frieza. That would not only kill Goku in space but also kill Belie himself. Perhaps we should stay and wait for Whis. Maybe Whis will taste my food and come to pick me up. Although the hope is slim, it's still better than killing Goku, right? After all, Jin and Bardock treated me like their own son. A person cannot live without a conscience. Bardock, say something, try to persuade Belie to leave with Kakarot. Jin said anxiously to Bardock. No need, I'm really not leaving, Beryl said decisively. Since Belie refuses to leave, let him stay, perhaps I'm overthinking it. Bardock thought seriously for a moment, then ruffled Belie's hair again. All right then, Jin nodded, her voice tinged with reluctance. Actually, I'll miss Beryl too. Goodbye, Kakarot. Belie waved goodbye to Kakarot inside the spaceship. You must survive. Jin leaned closer. Goodbye. Bardock forced a smile. Kakarot's eyes widened, his hands gripping the spaceship's transparent dome tightly. He looked at Jin, then at Belie and whispered, Mommy, Belie's brother. As for Bardock, he was relatively unfamiliar with him because Kakarot rarely saw him. Jin turned her back and 2 lines of crystal tears streamed down her face. Bardock gritted his teeth and pressed the start button on the spaceship. Whoosh! The spaceship streaked across the night sky, instantly breaking through the atmosphere and entering the vast expanse of space. Bardock gently embraced his sobbing wife, looked up at the twinkling lights in the sky and remained silent. Jin placed her hand on Beryl's shoulder while wiping away tears with her other hand. The 3 people's tails swayed in the wind. A breeze blew by, bringing a touch of coolness. Outer space, Frieza's spaceship. Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan God. Frieza sat in the stroller, an endless smile on his face, his tail swaying gently behind him. Lord Frieza, I believe this is merely a cliched hero legend, Belie said with a smile. Of course I know, but I can't afford to be uneasy. Frieza snorted. Regardless, Saiyans are a bunch of extremely proud individuals. They'll never truly become my loyal servants. It's time to destroy them along with planet Vegeta. It's a real shame, though. Saiyans are excellent fighters after all, Beryl sighed. HMPH, Frieza snorted, not answering the question, and turned to ask, by the way, how many Saiyans have returned to planet Vegeta? In about a month, almost all the Saiyans will return, Beryl replied, hands behind his back. Only a very small number of Saiyans will need more time to return to planet Vegeta. I can't wait any longer. Let's tentatively schedule it for a month later to enjoy a long-awaited fireworks display. Frieza's lips curled into a slight smile. Won't this arouse suspicion among the survivors? Belie asked. Hehe, just say you were unlucky enough to be hit by a giant meteorite. Frieza's smile grew even wider. Just as Frieza was laughing heartily, a spaceship streaked past the window in front of him, standing out conspicuously in the starry sky. Frieza's smile gradually froze and his face turned grim. Go shoot that spaceship down. Belie, quick-witted as ever, immediately gave the order to one of his henchmen. Yes, the underling bowed and was about to leave to shoot down Kakarot's spaceship. Who is it? Frieza asked coldly. Investigate immediately, Belie shouted. The test results came back quickly and reached Belie's ears. Lord Frieza, it has been determined that it is a Saiyan baby, Beryl replied. Oh, Frieza's tail twitched, his eyes narrowed and a murderous intent flashed in them. However, if Lord Frieza knew his combat power rating, he would find it quite laughable. Beryl smiled. What? Frieza looked up at Belie, too. Belie held up 2 fingers. When Frieza heard this news, his eyes widened in astonishment. It's unbelievable that the Saiyans, a supposedly powerful race, have a 3-year-old child with a power level of only 2. Beryl sighed, shaking his head repeatedly. That's practically no different from those races with little fighting power. The Saiyans have truly declined. Oh. Frieza let out a series of strange laughs, laughing so hard that snot bubbles were spraying from his nose. Lord Frieza, shall we take him down? Belie asked hastily. Let him be. Frieza waved his hand lightly, his smile widening. With his fighting power, even if a Super Saiyan truly existed, it wouldn't be his turn. Yes, that Saiyan is completely ruined, Beryl nodded in agreement. Perhaps that's why his parents banished him to another planet, planet Vegeta. After sending Kakarot away, Belie was still a little embarrassed to go home and be a third wheel, so he made up another excuse, saying that he had to go to the palace. After all, besides Jin, there is no other home left on this planet for Belie. There isn't even a single house. If I leave this house, I can only spend 1 night at the palace. In fact, as the head chef of Belie, he could easily apply for a residence on planet Vegeta. However, Beryl did not apply. He felt quite comfortable living with Jin and Kakarot. But if I apply now, it'll probably take at least a month for the application to be approved, right? By then, planet Vegeta would have long been destroyed. Belie, what are you saying? The palace should be closed long ago at this hour. Jin shook her head, her kind face hardening, and said in a soft voice, "Go home now." Bardock placed his hand on Beryl's head, his expression serious, and simply uttered 2 words, "Go home." After saying that, Bardock ruffled Belser's hair with his hands, making it a mess. Belie, since Jin and Bardock were speaking so sincerely, Beryl couldn't say much more and could only follow them home. After returning home, Belie quickly washed her face and brushed her teeth, then went into her and Kakarot's bedroom, lay down on the bed and forced herself to fall asleep as soon as possible. As for eavesdropping on long-separated couples' private conversations, Beryl really had no interest in that. However, looking at the empty baby care machine next to her, Beryl suddenly felt a little disappointed. Kakarot is gone, planet Vegeta will be destroyed in no more than a month. What can I do? Beller did not regret his decision tonight. If I were to actually ride on a spaceship with Goku, not only would I kill Goku, but I would also die. Now I can only hope that Whis will come back for me. I just don't know if Whis actually ate the food I cooked. If you forget to eat it or wait a month before eating it, then it's really too late. Living room, I hope Kakarot can reach Earth safely. Jin's eyes were full of worry. Bardock nodded without saying anything more, then came a long silence. I don't know how much time has passed. Bardock took a sip of water and glanced towards Belie's room. Jin saw this, checked the time, and quietly pushed open the door to Belie's room, glancing towards his bed. Then Jin carefully left the room, slowly closing the door behind her. She smiled sweetly at Bardock. Belie is asleep. Shall we do something meaningful? Bardock, I'm going to take a shower. Jin blushed and ran towards the bathroom. Knock knock. Before Jin had even reached the bathroom, there was a sudden knock on the door. Bardock stepped forward and opened the door. Ah, Bardock's back? Nausea appeared at the door, a smile spreading across her chubby face. What is it? Bardock asked calmly. I'm really sorry. Do you have any ginger? Could I borrow some? I've run out of ginger at home. Naja rubbed her chubby cheeks a little embarrassedly. Ah, it's Naja. I'll go get it. Jin leaned closer and quickly said to Naja, you come in first. I won't go in, it's too embarrassing. Naja shook her head. Jin didn't say much, turned around and went into the kitchen, took a piece of ginger and handed it to Naja. Thank you. Naja was quite polite, probably because Bardock was home. You're welcome. Jin waved her hand. Then I won't disturb your rest any longer. It's been so long since you two have seen each other. There are too many people during the day and it's finally evening. Hee. Naja grinned. Naja, what are you saying? Jin's face suddenly turned red. Jin, you're a mother of 2 now. How come you still act like a little girl? Naja teased. Is Rick finished? Bardock suddenly asked. Naja's smile froze instantly. Jin, isn't that a bit too direct? I'm leaving. Good luck to you guys. Naja gave a dry laugh, turned and left. Bardock closed the door. This Naja, she always speaks so bluntly, Jin said with a smile. Does she often come this late? Bardock asked, frowning. I'll talk to Rick tomorrow and tell him to keep an eye on his wife. It's all right, besides, Belie gets off work late, Jin smiled. Naja is a good person, except she sometimes likes to talk nonsense. She has no other faults. Bardock, you mustn't say these things to Rick, there's no need, it will only make things worse for the neighbors. Does Belie get off work that late every day? Bardock asked in a low voice. Yes, the royal chef's job is very hard and he's just been promoted to head chef, so there's a lot of work for him to handle, Jin sighed. It's really tough on this child, he's so young, yet he has to work so hard. If I'm overthinking things about Frieza, I'll apply to have him join our team's logistics department in a while and he can come with me on our alien training trip, Bardock suggested to Jin after a moment's thought. Don't you want to? Kakarot and Raditz have already left planet Vegeta, you can't take Belie with you too. Jin quickly shook her head, indicating her disagreement. Then I'll find an opportunity to ask King Vegeta to give Belie an easier job, Bardock added. Really, no need, Jin smiled. Don't let his young age fool you. Beryl is a little devil, he's got a lot of ideas, just like you were when you were a kid. Bardock, I misspoke, I always think of him as my own son. Jin sighed, looking down. Bardock, you know what? Sometimes I really feel that Belser is our real son and Raditz is the Potai family's child. Although that's a very naive thought of mine. Bardock raised his eyes and looked at Jin with some surprise. Naja said yesterday that Belfast is starting to look more and more like me. Jin walked over and looked in the mirror, saying, "Look, don't our face shapes and eyes look alike? As for hairstyles, they don't really look like mine, they're more like Bardock's." Bardock was speechless. He walked over to Jin, looked in the mirror and felt that Belser's hairstyle had absolutely nothing in common with his own. Of course, Raditz's hairstyle doesn't resemble her own. It doesn't seem like it. Bardock shook his head. What if we do that? Jin said, gently lifting Bardock's hair up so that it stood on end. Bardock looked at himself in the mirror again, his pupils suddenly contracted and his eyes widened involuntarily. Jin also looked at Bardock in the mirror, and when she saw Bardock's spiky hairstyle she was immediately stunned and almost shouted, "It's so similar!" Jin exclaimed in amazement. How is this possible?" Bardock murmured, momentarily speechless. "Naja was joking with me yesterday, asking if the naming system was malfunctioning." Jin thought carefully, then looked up and pondered. "Actually, I suddenly feel that what Naja said seems quite right. Belsi and Raditz were born at the same time. Could they have gotten mixed up when they were put together?" "I'll get it checked tomorrow," Bardock said to Jin after thinking for a moment. "Appraisal?" Jin was taken aback. "I've heard of an ancient technique that involves simply comparing a strand of Belsi's hair with one of mine to determine genetic similarity," Bardock explained. "If the similarity is around 99%, then they're biologically related. All you need is his hair, that's too easy." Jin nodded vigorously, looking again at Bardock and herself in the mirror, and exclaimed, "You know what? Belsi's face shape seems almost identical to mine, and it's nearly the same as your hair standing on end. I really don't believe it's not a system malfunction." Become a god today. Early morning, as usual, Belsi got up at 4 a.m. Jin had already prepared breakfast. "Belsi, your hair smells, go wash it." Jin leaned in and sniffed, then quickly pointed it at Belsi. Beryl paused for a moment, then nodded without objecting. "I'll wash you," Jin said, stepping forward. "No need, Aunt Jin, I can manage on my own." Beryl went into the bathroom and washed her hair. "Belsi, do you remember what day it is today?" Jin asked with a smile at the door. "What is it, Aunt Jin?" Beryl asked while washing her hair. "It's your birthday today," Jin chuckled. "In previous years you always spent this time with Raditz." Bercy nodded without saying anything more. "Before I knew it, I'm already 6 years old today. Come back early tonight, Bardock and I will celebrate your birthday." Jin was heading towards the Bell Circuit, feeling a little excited and expectant. If he really is my and Bardock's biological son, then this birthday will be very meaningful. "Okay," Beryl nodded. Afterwards, Beryl ate something quickly and left home for the palace. As for what Jin and Bardock discussed last night, Belser had fallen asleep early and didn't hear it. Watching Beryl's departing figure, Jin found a few strands of hair in the basin Beryl had used to wash her hair, dried them, and carefully wrapped them up. "Bardock, I've prepared Belsi's hair." Jin placed the wrapped hair on the bedside table and asked, "Will the results be available today?" "Sure, we just need to put it in the machine for comparison and we'll get the results right away," Bardock replied. "I'll go with you." Jin suddenly became interested. "Let's talk about it when it's light." Bardock turned to look at the dark night sky outside the window and asked, "Belsi, are you going to work so early? It must be tough, right?" Jin nodded, then added, "Actually, it's quite good. Although it's hard work, at least you don't have to risk your life like Bardock does outside." "You're right." Bardock nodded thoughtfully, finding it difficult to decide for a moment. On the one hand, they want their children to become outstanding combatants. On the one hand, they don't want their children to encounter danger on an alien planet. It's such a contradiction. "When I went to Cyril this time, I encountered a dragon that grants wishes. It said it could grant any wish I had." Bardock sat up in bed, lost in thought. "Is that so?" Jin paused slightly, then asked curiously, "What wish did Bardock make?" "Didn't think much of it at the time, assuming it was just an old legend saying that if I could really make a wish, I would wish for my child to grow up safely," Bardock replied. Jin blinked her beautiful big eyes rapidly, looking at Bardock's face. There was a silence that lasted for several seconds. "That's all?" Jin asked. "That's all." Bardock scratched his head and gave Jin a strange look. "And me, I only hope your children grow up. Don't I hope your wife is safe?" Jin pouted, looking sullen. "Who knows if it's true or not?" Bardock hurriedly offered a weak explanation. "Even if it's fake, you should still include your delicate wife in it." Jin blinked. "Bardock, a primitive planet." "Lord Rumsey, come down and play." Kirsty waved to Rumsey in the sky. Rumsey's face was as black as coal and he grumbled, "Kiers, have you had enough fun yet?" "Lord Rumsey, there are so many female elephants here, why don't you choose one to take back with you?" Kirsty laughed heartily. Rumsey's face darkened further. Below, on a vast, endless grassland, a herd of pink elephants was slowly moving forward. Kreese, on the other hand, sat on the largest elephant, using it as her mount. Rumsey was seething with hatred. He really wanted to destroy the planet. "Enough, Kreese!" Rumsey slowly appeared beside Kreese, his face extremely grim, and snapped, "You've been playing for hours, really." "Has it been that long already?" Kirsty chuckled, her eyes crinkling with a flirtatious smile. "Hurry up, we can go back to Universe 10 now." Rumsey glared angrily at Kreese. "Oh dear, are we going back already?" Kirsty was a little disappointed. "Otherwise what?" Rumsey snorted. "Then let's go." Kirsty nodded and smiled, slowly taking flight. Before leaving, she asked again, "Aren't you really going to take a female elephant back? Look at that elephant, it's so beautiful and it would be a perfect match for Lord Rumsey." Rumsey turned pale with anger, his body trembled violently and his elephant trunk swayed back and forth. "Lord Rumsey looks so funny when he's angry." Kirsty covered her mouth, laughing like a blooming flower. "He's gone." Rumsey transformed into a streak of purplish-red light and instantly soared into the sky. Keith immediately caught up and appeared beside Rumsey. Rumsey glanced back at the planet below, suppressing the urge to destroy it. "Should we return to Universe 10? Kreese asked. "Otherwise what?" Rumsey snorted irritably. "Then let's go." Without saying another word, Kess's body immediately radiated a dazzling light like stars. Whoosh! The two transformed into two beams of light of different colors, soaring through the vast starry sky. It flew for a while. Suddenly remembering something, Keith turned to Rumsey beside her and said, "Lord Rumsey, the chicken wings we had yesterday tasted really good." "The taste is indeed unique." Rumsey nodded in agreement, then asked, "Which planet did Weiss say he got these chicken wings from?" "Planet Vegeta," Kirsten replied. "Let's go take a look, find that guy who makes chicken wings, and if he can make even better things, we can bring him back to be a cook," Rumsey suddenly thought. "Oh my, this means I can eat delicious food every day." Kirsty exclaimed excitedly and immediately used the crystal ball on her scepter to locate Planet Vegeta. Approximately 10 seconds later, "Planet Vegeta is in that direction," Kirsten said, pointing slightly upwards and to the side. "Let's go," Rumsey called out. The two hurtled off towards Planet Vegeta. Planet Vegeta, at 8 a.m., Bardock, holding Jin's hand, arrived at the Department of Science and Technology. "Oh, it's Bardock, what brings you here so early?" A Saiyan from the Science and Technology Department greeted him with a smile. "Q-Sola, do you still have that genetic testing machine?" Bardock asked. "That old genetic testing machine, the one that can detect blood relations?" Q-Sora paused slightly, thought for a moment, nodded and joked, "Yes, are you going to use that machine?" "You don't mean to test whether you and Jin are related, do you?" Bardock, Jin, what blood relation do we have?" "Haha, just kidding, I'll get it for you." Q-Sora didn't pry into why Bardock needed that machine. After saying that, he went straight to an equipment room, took out a laptop computer that was about 10 inches in size and handed it to Bardock. Bardock took the machine, lifted the screen, and silently examined it for a moment. "Just place 2 strands of hair here and you can make a comparison immediately," Q-Sora explained to Bardock, pointing to a spot that resembled a laptop touchpad. Bardock nodded and thanked him. "Bardock, you guys go ahead with your work, I'm going to do something else," Q-Sora said, then turned and left. Bardock took a deep breath and carefully placed his hair and Belsie's hair on the touchpad. Jin gripped Bardock's hand tightly, her palms damp with sweat. Then the couple stared intently at the screen that looked like a laptop. The screen was black, reflecting the tense faces of the two people. "Not showing up, are we overthinking it?" Jin immediately looked disappointed. No, Bardock shook his head. Jin turned to look at Bardock. I forgot to turn it on, Bardock said. Jin. Bardock immediately pressed the power button. The computer boots up very quickly. A line of text appears the instant the screen lights up. Genetic similarity 99%. Jin and Bardock were stunned, caught off guard by the words, "That's way too fast. It's out." 99% similarity. Jin was both surprised and delighted. Bardock looked stunned and didn't come to his senses for a long time. He really is our child. Jin held Bardock's hand tightly, tears of excitement welling up in her eyes. Damn it. Was it a careless mistake by the staff or a malfunction in the machine? How could such a basic error be made on such a technologically advanced planet? Bardock trembled with rage. It's all right, Bardock. After all, I've always considered Beryl my own child, Jin said nonchalantly. Besides, don't we already know? Bardock nodded, his expression growing increasingly solemn. I always felt that Raditz wasn't close to me at all. It was like he was the other kid everyone else's. And he was rebellious from a young age with a wicked air about him, causing me a lot of worry. Apparently, Patai and Raditz had very similar personalities when they were young, Jin sighed deeply. On the contrary, Belie is very similar to me in many ways. Every time I see him, I'm even reminded of myself as a child. Like some of his little gestures, I see a reflection of my younger self in him. Bardock fell silent. The couple exchanged a glance, their expressions growing increasingly excited. Go and bring him out of the palace and tell him about it, Bardock said to Jin after a moment's thought. Now, Jin checked the time. It was only a little past 8:30 in the morning. Belie's been very busy lately. More and more Saiyans are returning to their planet, and as the head chef, my workload has increased considerably. It's not appropriate to call him back now. Bardock nodded, agreeing with his wife's words. Let's wait for him to get off work. I'll buy more groceries and give him a proper birthday celebration, Jin said softly, her expression filled with maternal affection. Bardock hasn't forgotten, has he? Today is his and Raditz's birthday. We'll tell him the good news tonight. I'm sure he'll be even happier knowing we're his biological parents. I'll go buy groceries, Bardock offered. Okay, I'll go home and prepare, Jai replied. The couple, filled with excitement, went their separate ways. High in the sky, Kex, is this the planet? Rumsey looked down at the blue planet below and asked Kex beside him. Yes, Lord Rumsey, this is indeed planet Vegeta. Kos nodded slightly. The outer perimeter of this planet is quite lively. Rumsey turned his head and glanced at the starry sky, noticing many spaceships hovering nearby. I have a feeling this planet is about to be destroyed, Crystal murmured. It's probably an order from Lord Beerus to have his people carry it out. HMPH, Beerus is such a lazy bum. It's just destroying a planet, right? Letting someone else do that kind of work is shameless. Rumsey snorted unhappily, then glanced towards the vicinity of the planet's palace, pointing in that direction. Cress, isn't that the palace over there? Let's see which guy made those chicken wings. Yes, Lord Rumsey. Kirsty nodded slightly and immediately used her scepter to locate the person who made the chicken wings. Approximately 10 seconds later, smack. A rather handsome little boy was immediately projected from the crystal ball atop Kex's scepter. The little boy is tossing the wok, cooking the vegetables himself. It's him. Judging from his age, he doesn't seem very old. Rumsey was slightly taken aback. Currently, she's not even 6 years old, Kirsten said thoughtfully. Are you sure it's this little brat? Rumsey looked at Belie in the video with disbelief, his eyes full of doubt. That's right, look at how he cooks. Despite his young age, he's definitely a master chef, Kirsten chuckled. But I must say, this little guy is quite adorable. Let's go see what dishes he can cook, Rumsey suggested. The two figures moved swiftly and appeared in the Imperial kitchen in an instant. King Vegeta is entertaining guests today, so Belie is personally cooking some of his signature dishes. While Belie was tossing the food in the pan, he was also silently pondering what kind of guests King Vegeta would entertain. Has Weiss returned again? Or are we going to entertain Frieza or the King of Kurds? Why isn't Weiss back yet? I hope it's you coming back today. In any case, Belie did his best to make all the dishes look, taste, and smell delicious. What if it really is Weiss? Just as Belie was diligently tossing the food in the pan, he suddenly sensed something strange moving behind him. Didn't I tell you? You can leave after you've finished helping me cook and don't bother me while I'm cooking, Beryl said irritably. I like to concentrate when I'm cooking, that's how you bring out the soul in your food. HMPH, as expected of a professional chef, well said. Rumsey clapped his hands and praised Bersai. Wow, did you make all these dishes yourself? Kes looked at the dozen or so dishes laid out on the table with a look of surprise. Upon hearing their voices, Belsay immediately turned to look behind him. Upon seeing this, Beryl was stunned. Kreese, Rumsey, why are there just the two of them? Did I wander onto the wrong set? Is this Universe 10? Beryl looked at them without showing any emotion. Chicken wings, Rumsey's eyes lit up as he spotted a plate of Orleans chicken wings on the table. Without any hesitation, he grabbed a wing, stuffed it into his mouth, and began to eat it in large bites. What's this? Kirsty walked up to a plate of food, pointed to the dish with the aroma of meat on it, and asked Belie. Braised pork belly. Bell Raceway? It looks delicious, said Kirsty, gently hooking her slender hand upwards. Smack! A piece of braised pork flew into the air and appeared near Kier's mouth. Kirsty opened her luscious little mouth and took a small bite of the braised pork, savoring it with relish. After taking that bite, Kirsty excitedly waved her hands and stomped her feet on the ground. Oh my gosh, it's so delicious! This is the first time I've ever tasted such delicious meat, Kirsten exclaimed excitedly. Leave some for me. Rumsey said anxiously, stepping forward to pick up a pair of chopsticks, taking a piece of braised pork and stuffing it into his mouth. After tasting the delicious braised pork, Rumsey's eyes widened in surprise. Beryl watched silently as the two enjoyed one dish after another without saying a word. Kiers and Rumsey tasted every dish, marveling at each one. About half an hour has passed. Kreese and Rumsey exchanged a glance, their eyes filled with admiration. Hey kid, did you make all these dishes? Rumsey asked, picking at his teeth with a toothpick and looking at Belsay. Yes, Beryl nodded. You're wasting your talent staying here. Come work for me and be my personal chef, Rumsey grinned. Beryl looked hesitant for a moment, but inwardly he was overjoyed. This is called feigning indifference to lure the prey into a trap. I agreed too quickly and I felt like I was worthless. I'm finally leaving this planet. Am I going to Universe 10? Kid, you don't know yet. This planet is heavily fortified. I don't know what grudge your people have with those aliens, but I suspect your planet will soon be invaded. When that happens, only a handful will survive, Rumsey said with a laugh. And several of them possess the power to easily destroy a planet. Your planet might suffer a devastating blow. Is that so? Beryl feigned surprise. How about it? Come work for me as my cook. If I'm in a good mood, I can teach you some cultivation techniques enough to make you practically invincible in a galaxy. Rumsey wiggled his elephant trunk, scrutinizing Belsay with great interest. Who exactly are you people? Beryl asked, feigning ignorance. This is Lord Rumsey, the god of destruction. Kirsty walked up with a grin, gently pinching Belser's cheek. Little one's cheeks are so soft, it's so fun to pinch them. Belsay, that's outrageous. Why are angels touching me inappropriately? Are you the god of destruction? Belsay shoved Kex's hand away, feigning surprise once again. Rumsey smiled smugly. Something's not right. Kes blinked her beautiful eyes, tilted her head and looked Belsay up and down. What? Rumsey was taken aback and glanced at Keith. Belsay also glanced at Keith, wondering what she meant by something's not right. The next moment, to Belz's utter dismay, Keith suddenly picked up the scepter, placed the crystal ball of the scepter on herself, and began scanning her body. Belsay, what exactly do you want to see? Kiers, what's wrong? Rumsey asked curiously. You're not interested in a 5-year-old, are you? Your interests are certainly unique. What are you saying, Lord Rumsey? Kiers glared at Rumsey and said irritably, I just feel there's something strange about this child's body. What do you mean? Rumsey asked, puzzled. Little friend, what's your name? Kreese didn't answer but crouched down and spoke softly to Bell. Beryl said his name. What do you think of Lord Rumsey's suggestion? Kirsty smiled slightly. If it's all right, we'll take you away from this planet immediately. Sure, but could you take 2 more people with you off this planet? Beryl wanted to take Jin and Bardock with him. They're basically my assistants. Without suitable assistance, my cooking might not taste as good. Kid, don't push your luck. Rumsey's face turned cold. Do you really think the god of destruction is easy to talk to? As a cook, it's absolutely impossible for you to not even know the basics of chopping vegetables. Oh dear, I'm so sorry, but because you're from Universe 7 and Lord Rumsey is a god of destruction from Universe 10, we can only take one back in principle. Crystal sighed slightly, speaking earnestly. If we take too many people, it won't be good for explaining to the gods of destruction of Universe 7. Bercy remained silent. What kind of logic is that? What difference does it make if more people are brought along? Why is it so hard to explain? Beryl thought to himself. After carefully considering his options for a moment, Beryl decided to leave first. After all, I'm not familiar with Kirsten and I've only just met Rumsey. If we make too many demands, we might really anger Rumsey. By then, they won't even have their one and only chance to leave planet Vegeta. Planet Vegeta will not be destroyed for another month. During this month, I'll first get to know them better and then figure out a way to rescue Jin and Bardock. This is the only way. Then wait for me a moment, I'll go back and say hello, Belie said stubbornly. Kid, I advise you not to test the patience of the god of destruction. Rumsey snorted impatiently, appearing behind Belie in a flash. The speed was so fast that Beryl didn't even have time to react. Smack! Rumsey snapped his fingers behind Belie's head. Beryl was horrified. He immediately felt his consciousness becoming increasingly blurred. Thud! Belie's body went limp and she collapsed onto Crystal, immediately passing out. Kids talk too much, they might want to go home to find their mothers. If we keep dawdling like this, who knows how many hours will pass, and I hate waiting. This is much easier, take them with you. Rumsey chuckled, his elephant trunk swaying. Lord Rumsey is really reckless? Kreese sighed softly, hoisting Belie onto her shoulder and nodding gently. But it certainly saves a lot of trouble this way. Belie's tail seemed to have a mind of its own, hooking itself around Crystal's arm and wrapping around her. Kirsten glanced at it but remained silent. HMPH, I don't have time to waste arguing with a little brat. Rumsey snorted, then glanced at the dozen or so dishes laid out on the table and ordered, and pack all of these up and take them home. Heh, that's what I thought too. Kreese didn't object and the scepter in her hand flashed. Whoosh! In just a moment the dozen or so dishes on the table vanished. Let's go, Rumsey said. The two walked towards the door. As soon as they appeared at the door, Keith and Rumsey bumped into two Saiyans who were walking towards them. Those two Saiyans were cooks who assisted Belie. The two immediately spotted Belle, who was perched on Kreese's shoulder. Who are you people? Put down, Your Excellency. The two men shouted at Keith and Rumsey. So noisy, Rumsey waved his hand lightly across the distance. Bang! The two were sent flying backward, tumbling several times on the ground. After the two stopped, his head lolled to the side and he fainted on the spot. Lord Rumsey is really reckless. If Lord Beerus finds out, won't he cause you trouble? Keith said with a laugh. HMPH, who's afraid of who? Rumsey scoffed. Besides, didn't he want to destroy this planet? I've already given him a lot of face by not killing those two. But I'm not going to help him destroy this planet. I don't want to work for that Beerus guy. Shall we go? Said Kirsty, tapping her scepter lightly on the ground. Smack! A dazzling light like stars emanated from Kreese's body. Rumsey's entire body shimmered with a purplish-red light. The two transformed into two streaks of light of different colors, instantly disappearing into the starry sky and vanishing in the blink of an eye. The vast starry sky, the boundless universe, Frieza's spaceship. Frieza sat in the stroller looking out the window at the distant blue planet Vegeta, his triangular eyes gleaming brightly. Just then, Frieza suddenly saw two streaks of different colors flash in the starry sky and then disappear. Frieza rubbed his eyes and gently patted his forehead, momentarily stunned. What is that? It feels like the light emanating from Lord Beerus. That shouldn't be the case. Lord Beerus left a long time ago, didn't he? Forget it, never mind. Planet Vegeta, Royal Palace. 10 minutes later, the two cooks who had been knocked unconscious by Rumsey were finally revived by passers-by. The two leaped to their feet and rushed to the royal kitchen, but Beryl was nowhere to be seen. Oh no, the head steward has been kidnapped. Quickly, go and report to the head steward. The two quickly reported the matter to Gaira, the head chef, who was of a higher rank than Belie. The head steward Gaira was momentarily stunned and completely confused about the situation. An elephant and a blue-skinned woman kidnapped the head of the household. It all sounds a bit nonsensical. Why kidnap him? Don't make a fuss. Planet Vegeta is never short of cooks. Let him be. Gra waved his hand casually, not taking the matter to heart at all. It's just a lost cupboard, isn't it? What's the big deal? Since the head steward had said so, the two cooks naturally couldn't say anything more. The royal palace has lost a cook. Although he was the head chef of the imperial kitchen, he didn't cause much of a stir. Me passed little by little. The sky was dark from dusk until sunset. Bardock's house. Jin prepared a sumptuous feast and even made a birthday cake herself, anxiously awaiting Beryl's return. Today marks the day the couple officially recognized each other with Belle. The couple were both very excited. Jin paced back and forth in the room, occasionally glancing up at the clock on the wall. Bardock sat upright in his chair, gazing silently out the window, lost in thought, having already drunk several glasses of water. The clock ticked away and time slowly passed. It was completely dark and the night sky was filled with bright stars. Before we knew it, it was around 10:30 p.m. Normally, Belie returns around this time. Bardock, get ready. The moment Beryl walks in, let's sing him happy birthday, just like we said before, Jin said, her expression growing increasingly excited. After he makes a wish and blows out the candles, we'll tell him the good news. Do you really want me to sing happy birthday? Bardock's expression tightened, his face flushed, and he looked a little embarrassed. Bardock, you can't go back on your word, okay? Jin said with a stern face, afraid that Bardock might back down at the last minute. I'm afraid I won't sing well. Bardock's expression turned serious and he nervously took a big gulp of water. It's all right, I'll sing with you, Jin said softly. Don't be nervous, Bardock, we didn't just meet halfway through life. He grew up with me, I've always considered him my own child. Bardock took another sip of water, nodded seriously and replied, my name is not nervous. Puff, Jin smiled happily. Bardock scratched his head sheepishly. Hee hee, Bardock, you're so cute. Jin laughed as sweetly as a silver bell. The word cute is completely inappropriate when used to describe a Saiyan fighter. Bardock wiped his sweat. It was around 10:35. Knock, knock, knock. A familiar knocking sounded suddenly at what seemed like an appointed time. You're back, you're back. Jin was even more excited, running forward quickly and flung open the door. Bless. Bardock had barely uttered a single word when his expression froze instantly. Bardock, why are you calling me a pig? Naza scratched her chubby head, appeared in the doorway, glared at Bardock and said angrily, I hate it when people call me a pig. Even though I'm fat, I don't look like a pig at all. After saying that, Naja stomped her foot, turned around and prepared to leave. Naja, is something the matter? Jin asked, somewhat disappointed, and stepped forward to pull her aside. It's nothing. I just came to tell you that Rick heard something bad happened at the palace this afternoon when he passed by, so I came to ask Belie if he knew what happened. Naza forced a smile, craned her neck and looked into the room. By the way, is Belie home? Hasn't he come back? Naja, Bardock was just singing a birthday song for Beryl, which meant happy birthday to you. Please don't relate it to yourself, Jin hurriedly explained. When Naja craned her neck to look into the room, she saw the birthday cake on the table. She immediately nodded, grinned, and said, I knew Bardock wasn't the type to swear. It's a misunderstanding. We're the best neighbors, aren't we? Yes, yes. Jin smiled ingratiatingly, then quickly changed the subject, but speaking of which, Naja, why are you wearing the detector? A new type of detector was visible on Naja's eyes. This is Rick's detector, I'm just wearing it for fun. Naza chuckled, pressed a button on the detector, checked Jin's combat power stat and was immediately shocked, gasping, Jin, you're amazing, your combat power is 620, you could totally apply to become a combatant. You know I don't like fighting. Jin shook her head. Beep beep. Immediately afterwards, when Naza checked Bardock's combat power values through the detector, her fat face was filled with endless horror and her pupils were filled with bright red blood vessels. Naza's body trembled violently, her large face filled with disbelief. Combat power 15,000, Naza stammered. Huh, really? Jin was slightly taken aback and glanced back at Bardock. Are you kidding me, Bardock? Your fighting power has already surpassed King Vegeta's, Naza exclaimed. Do you know what happened at the palace? Bardock stared at Naza, asking expressionlessly, a bad feeling suddenly creeping into his heart. I don't know, I heard there was a commotion for a while but it calmed down quickly. I thought Bear Grylls had returned and I was going to ask him. Naja replied, then sighed with some worry. Sigh, planet Vegeta hasn't been peaceful lately. It feels like a great battle is about to begin. I hope I'm just overthinking it. Jin's expression instantly turned somewhat unpleasant. But Bardock, your fighting ability is real, right? Naza kept gasping for breath, still unable to believe it. Combat strength isn't important. Bardock's expression was extremely grave. Strange, shouldn't Belle be back soon by now? Naza looked back at the night road Belle used to walk. Yes. There might have been some commotion in the palace today, that's why I came back so late, Jin said casually, glancing into the night with worry in her eyes. I'll go check on the palace, Bardock said in a low voice. As he spoke, Bardock took out the detector and put it on his glasses. Immediately afterward, Bardock removed the detector from Naza's eyes, adjusted the channel and handed it to Jin, saying, I've set up a separate communication channel, let me know if Belie returns. Okay, Bardock. Jin nodded repeatedly. Hey, that's my detector, how could you just steal someone else's detector like that? Naja was a little unhappy. Bardock looked coldly at Naja without saying a word. Naza seemed to realize something and couldn't help but shiver, her plump face turned as white as a sheet of paper. Why would I provoke this guy? His fighting power has surpassed that of King Vegeta, he's probably the strongest Saiyan on planet Vegeta, why should I take him seriously? This guy is too low-key. With such high combat power, he didn't apply to become a superior warrior but stayed in the ranks of inferior warriors. Just kidding, just kidding. Naja quickly changed her tune, chuckling, take it and use it however you like. I'd even give it to you as a gift, aren't you and Rick the best of friends? Bardock said no more and immediately took to the sky, slowly flying towards the palace. Under the cover of night, Bardock's eyes shone brightly as he scanned the streets, searching for Belser's movements. At this time of day, there weren't many people on the road. Bardock used his detectors and eyes to search and felt he should be able to find Belie. Bardock searched all the way but couldn't find any trace of Bells. Before anyone knew it, Bardock had already appeared at the palace gates. 2 palace guards immediately blocked his path. Isn't this Bardock the lowly warrior? One of the guards asked with a smile. What can I do for you? Another guard asked. I'm here to see Belie, please inform him. Bardock said calmly. Belie, isn't that the head chef who's only 5 years old? The first guard asked his companion. That's right, he seems to be staying at Bardock's wife's house. Another guard nodded. No need to announce it, he's been kidnapped. The first guard shook his head and said to Bardock with a grin, it's really strange that someone would kidnap a cook. I really don't know what he was thinking, is he going to take him home to be his personal chef? Ha ha ha, another guard laughed, your laughter is too casual. The first guard glared at his companion. I just thought your jokes were really bad but I laughed along as a courtesy. His companion laughed again. You, what did you say, kidnapped? Bardock exclaimed in shock, lunging forward to grab the guard by the collar and lifting him high into the air. Say it again? What are you doing, Bardock? Do you know you're just a lowly warrior? The guard who was being held high shouted coldly. Let him go. His companion shouted angrily, stepping forward and delivering a hard punch to Bardock's back. Bardock took the punch head-on but acted as if nothing had happened, turning around to glare coldly at the guard. The guard was so frightened that he involuntarily took several steps back, his face extremely pale. Tell me, what exactly happened? Bardock shouted sternly. Thud. With that, Bardock lifted the guard high and slammed him against the wall, his face unusually cold. The guard struggled desperately, but it was all in vain, the horror in his eyes was clearly visible. I'll talk, let's talk this out. The guard immediately backed down. Bardock's expression softened slightly and he took the guard off the wall and placed him on the ground. I heard it. As for whether it's true, I don't know. The guard wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and hurriedly explained, I heard that Belie was kidnapped by an elephant and a little blue-skinned girl. I have no information on them. An elephant? Bardock was taken aback, then asked coldly, what kind of elephant? The pink elephant? To be precise, a human resembling an elephant. We don't know which planet they're from, the guard explained. The other one is a blue-skinned girl who looks a bit like a little girl. How long have they been gone with Beryl? Bardock asked in a low voice. It's been 5 or 6 hours already, the guard replied truthfully, wiping his sweat. What did you say? 5 or 6 hours ago, we've already flown out of the galaxy where our planet Vegeta is located. Bardock was both shocked and furious and once again stepped forward and lifted the guard who had spoken high into the air. The companion was so frightened that he trembled and couldn't say a word. Why are you only telling me now? Bardock asked coldly. The two guards wanted to cry. You're only asking now. Damn it, who is Belser's superior? Bardock suddenly felt that the two guards seemed somewhat innocent and quickly asked. Is that Lord Gaira, the head chef? One of the guards said thoughtfully. Yes, it's him, the head chef Gaira. The guard, held high above his head, nodded repeatedly, pointing to a spot in the moonlight. His home is over there. Bardock put the guard down again, turned and left, flying towards the Grawl family's territory. Watching Bardock's departing figure, the two guards breathed a long sigh of relief. Is that guy really Bardock? The first guard asked, still incredulous. Yes, you're right, his companion rubbed his eyes and nodded. I was pinned against the wall by him just now. I felt like all my strength was gone, which means his fighting ability far surpasses mine. The first guard was pale and stammered. Isn't this guy being too low-key? He's clearly already a top-tier soldier, but he hasn't applied for it. Cold sweat trickled down his companion's forehead. I'd guess his combat power is at least 8,000 or higher, the first guard said in a deep voice. 8,000? That's truly top-tier warriors. His companion's eyes widened, his expression unusually grave. Bardock easily found the house of the head chef, Gaira, and knocked loudly on the door. Crunch! Graina opened her front door, rubbed her sleepy eyes, and saw Bardock standing in the doorway. Somewhat puzzled, she asked, Who are you? What are you doing in my house so late? You're the head chef, Gaira? Bardock frowned, scrutinizing the other man with a cold expression. Jella was a middle-aged man who looked somewhat unkempt, was slightly overweight, and had a small tuft of beard, small eyes, bulbous nose, thick lips. He's clearly the kind of villainous character. He's not very likable. That's right, I'm the head chef. Jella nodded, shaking her head. You should know about Bel's sale, right? Bardock suppressed his anger and asked coldly. Belsi, I remember now, you're Bardock Jin's husband, right? Graw's eyes lit up and he immediately came to his senses. Bardock remained silent, which was taken as tacit agreement. I was just about to tell you, something happened to Bel today. I was planning to go talk to Jin, but then King Vegeta asked me to cook for him to entertain Mr. Dodoria, his distinguished guest. Gra, being rather shrewd, quickly figured out Bardock's purpose and immediately said with a smile, those two guys who kidnapped Bel went too far. Not only did they kidnap Bel, but they also packed up all the delicious food Bel had just cooked and took it with them. Tell me in detail, who exactly are they? Bardock asked coldly. Jella had no choice but to tell Bardock everything he knew in detail. Bardock's brows were furrowed tightly. What Gaira said was almost identical to what the two guards had said. I'm so sorry about this. I should have told you beforehand. Jella gave an awkward smile and quickly apologized. Bardock's expression softened slightly. The head chef has already made his point so clear it would be inappropriate to take action against him now. But Belsi isn't your and Jin's child, is he? I remember he's Potai's, Gaira said with a smile. If he were your biological son, I would have told you immediately. These words, once spoken, felt like a needle P*** K to Bardock's heart. It hurt so much. Bang. Bardock's eyes turned cold and he delivered a side kick that struck Gaira in the stomach. Ow! Jella let out a scream, his face convulsed and contorted and his body flew backward. Boom. Jella's body passed right through the wall behind him, darting out and tumbling over a dozen times on the ground before finally coming to a stop. Bardock, his face cold, immediately flew to Gaira's side and patted his rough face. Bardock, let's talk this out. Why did you suddenly attack me? Gra winced in pain, feeling as if his whole body was falling apart. Grala was merely a head chef with virtually no combat ability comparable to Belser in strength. How could he possibly be a match for Bardock? Therefore, when Gaira first saw Bardock appear, he knew that Bardock was a combatant, so he spoke to him rather politely. However, Jella insisted on saying one last thing. If I don't tell, I won't get beaten up. Where are that elephant and that little girl's spaceship? Which direction did they fly in? Bardock asked, patting Glar's cheek. Jella quickly shook her head, saying somewhat fearfully, I really didn't know. Those two knocked Belser's men unconscious, and by the time they woke up, the elephant and the little girl had already taken Belser away. Bardock looked up at the pitch-black night and the starry sky, remaining silent. I've told you everything I know. Why can't we talk things out instead of resorting to violence? Fighting is wrong. Although we are a nation of warriors, some things can be resolved amicably. Gra said hastily and cautiously, her eyes filled with fear. How did you get injured? Bardock stood up and glanced down at Jella. I accidentally flew out while I was sleeping, Gra replied immediately, her eyes darting around. HMPH. Bardock snorted coldly, knowing he wouldn't get any more valuable information, and immediately took to the air and returned home. Then Bardock told Jin everything he knew in detail. Upon hearing the news that Beryl had been kidnapped, Jin's mind went blank, her body went limp, and she almost collapsed to the ground. Bardock quickly stepped forward and helped his wife up. Belie has been kidnapped. Who are they? Jin's pretty face was deathly pale, her eyes filled with worry. Bardock shook his head gravely and said in a deep voice, I'll go to the palace again tomorrow to inquire further. Who are they? Why did they take Beryl away? Jin's voice choked as she spoke. Perhaps they've taken a liking to Beryl's culinary skills and want to bring him in as their private chef. Bardock guessed, the universe is so vast, why must we make a child under 6 years old a cook? Jin asked, her eyes brimming with tears and indignation. Bardock remained silent. Was it done by Frieza's men? Jin asked again. That's possible, I'll ask Frieza's men when it's light. Bardock nodded. Today is Belsar's birthday. Can we celebrate his birthday before taking him away? We haven't even acknowledged him yet. Jin wiped away her tears. Bardock didn't know how to persuade her, so he just hugged his wife tightly, turned his head to look at the table full of delicious food, but had no appetite at all. The birthday cake displayed in the food court looked all alone at that moment. Universe 10, Planet Rumsey, whoosh whoosh, with 2 streaks of light flashing by, Kreese and Rumsey landed on the planet's surface. This kid can really sleep. Rumsey glanced at Belle on Kirsty's shoulder, and the tail wrapped around Kirsty's arm and couldn't help but snort. Keith gently placed Belser on the lawn and asked Rumsey, should we wake him, Lord Rumsey? Wake him up. Rumsey nodded. Smack. The crystal ball in Kreese's hand was aimed at Belsar below, radiating a star-like brilliance that quickly enveloped him. Beryl slowly opened his eyes, immediately got up from the ground and scanned his surroundings. To his surprise, Belser discovered that he seemed to have arrived in the realm of the gods of destruction. How long have I been asleep, kid? Welcome to the realm of the god of destruction. Rumsey grinned. From today onwards, you're my cook. Tell me, besides the dishes you made in the palace, what else can you cook? Beryl rubbed his head, then immediately looked around, his expression turning grim. Did you only bring me back? Bersey asked in a deep voice. Otherwise what? Rumsey snorted. Wasn't I clear enough before? You're from Universe 7. In principle, I can only bring one of you. You also said that soon Frieza's army might destroy our planet Vegeta. Belsai clenched his fists tightly, Jin's smiling face and kind features flashing through his mind, and his body trembled violently. What's it to me? Rumsey scoffed. I'm the god of destruction. You think I'm a philanthropist? Do you expect me to save your planet for you? You've gone too far. Belsay became even more agitated, shouting angrily, I said I'd come with you, but at least let me go home and say goodbye to my family. HMPH, if you want to go home to find your mother, who knows how long you'll dawdle, I can't wait that long. Rumsey rolled his eyes and said coldly. You. Belsay's voice grew increasingly agitated and chilling. Boom. Suddenly, a powerful aura erupted from Bersey's body. The vast energy spread wildly in all directions, stirring up wave after wave of storms on the planet Rumsey. Rumsey's eyes widened in disbelief. Kreese seemed to have expected this, and her expression appeared extremely calm. What's going on, Kex? How does this kid possess such powerful divine strength? Rumsey looked at Kex with some surprise. Oh dear, Lord Rumsey finally sensed it too, Kirsty chuckled. Actually, I already sensed it back on that planet. That's interesting, Rumsey exclaimed, suddenly intrigued. After venting his anger, Bells immediately overheard the conversation between Kreese and Rumsey and was momentarily stunned. Divine power? What's going on? Am I cultivating divine power? No wonder my combat power stat isn't increasing much, because the detectors could not detect divine power. Kid, try attacking me with all your might. Rumsey waved at Belsay, wiggled his elephant trunk, and his eyes were full of provocation. El had long disliked the elephant, so without hesitation he rushed forward and delivered a powerful punch to Rumsey. Smack! Rumsey lightly raised his hand and caught Beller's punch with just one finger. Not bad! Rumsey sensed the force of Belsay's punch. Converted to your Saiyan power levels, that punch just now was at least 1,000,000 in power. Bersey's eyes widened and he quickly jumped back, putting some distance between himself and Rumsey. The difference is just too big, as expected of a god of destruction. Wait a minute. This elephant is saying my fighting power has reached 1,000,000. Thinking about it carefully, that makes sense. If I were truly cultivating divine power, reaching a level of 1,000,000 would be perfectly normal. No wonder I always felt so powerful. Rumsey didn't press the issue with Bells but turned to Kex again, asking, Kex, what's going on? How could this kid possibly have cultivated divine power? I remember on that planet called Planet Vegeta, I didn't sense any other people with divine power. Oh dear, to put it simply, Belser is the type who was born with a divine physique. Kex once again held the scepter and scanned Belser's body through the crystal ball. Belsay, Bersey was speechless. Why did you use that thing to scan my body? I always feel like I'm not wearing any clothes. Wait a moment. Born with a divine body, what does that mean? Bells looked at Crystal with a puzzled expression, her eyes full of questions. Actually, Belser activated the divine power within him through anger. Although he had cultivated it before, it had all remained dormant within his body and hadn't been fully unleashed, Keith analyzed. Just now, due to a significant emotional fluctuation, all the divine power accumulated within Belser was activated, resulting in a substantial increase in his strength. At least a 10,000-fold increase. So in their words, his combat power jumped from 100 to 1,000,000, right? Rumsey asked with a smile. Yes, Kirsty nodded slightly. A naturally divine physique, currently apart from the Supreme Kai, very few people possess such a physique, Rumsey mused. Kreese didn't speak immediately but instead examined the crystal ball with the scepter. About 10 seconds have passed. Among the Saiyans, there was once a legendary Super Saiyan god, and perhaps Belial inherited this amazing physique, Koss offered her analysis. The shock in Bertha's heart was beyond words. The legendary Super Saiyan god, is it me? Bersey felt that happiness had come too suddenly. Am I actually the legendary Super Saiyan god? Is he the child of that legendary Super Saiyan god? Rumsey asked again. Beryl was slightly taken aback. My father is Badai and I've never heard of a legendary Super Saiyan god like him. Moreover, according to Belsay, his father, Padai, and mother, Liba, were both low-ranking warriors with a combat strength of around 2,000. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to become such close teammates with Bardock. Besides, as a Dragon Ball fan, I have indeed heard of the legendary Super Saiyan god in Belgrade. His name is Yamoshi. However, I don't think I have much of a relationship with that Yamoshi. Even if there is a blood relationship, they belong to our ancestors. If he's properly nurtured with his talent, Beryl might be able to succeed Lord Rumsey as God of Destruction and become an outstanding God of Destruction, Crystal chuckled, looking at Rumsey. Rumsey's face darkened and he grumbled, I never said I was going to retire, forget about it. He paused. Kid, did you hear that? Even if you're some legendary Super Saiyan god, you can forget about taking over my God of Destruction position. You'd better not even think about it. Rumsey snorted, glaring at Belsey. I don't care. Bersai rolled his eyes at Rumsey. Kid, what kind of attitude is that? Do you believe I'll ruin you? Rumsey rolled up his sleeves and stormed over to Bersey. Knowing he was no match for Rumsey, Belsay quickly dodged and hid behind Kreese. Kex, get out of the way. Let me teach this brat a lesson, let him know who has the most say in this world of destruction, Rumsey shouted at Kex. Wait a minute, Lord Rumsey. Kirsty held out her scepter to block Rumsey's path, saying, It seems the Supreme Kai has contacted me. Supreme Kaya, what does that old man want with you? Rumsey paused, slightly taken aback. Without saying a word, Crystal immediately contacted the Supreme Kai through the crystal ball in the scepter. "Hello, Lord Jivas, it's been a long time," Kess greeted politely. "Lady Kuz, as I mentioned before, I've reached retirement age, so I'll be applying for retirement in a few years." The voice of Supreme Kai Gawasu came through the crystal ball, tinged with age. "Last time I asked Lady Kuz to help find a suitable Supreme Kai for an internship. I wonder how the search went." "Oh dear, I forgot, I'm so sorry," Kirsten replied apologetically. "Haha, I knew it would be like this." Jevas laughed heartily. "So I found a suitable successor among the several Supreme Kais. The reason I contacted Lady Kuz was to tell her that we don't need to ask her for help in finding a trainee Supreme Kai for now." "Very well, it's best if Lord Jivas can find a suitable candidate himself." Keith nodded slightly, and as she said this, she suddenly noticed that Rumsey was giving her a series of winks. Kreese was slightly taken aback. Immediately afterwards, Keith saw Rumsey point behind her. When Kess turned her head, she saw Belie hiding behind her, and her eyes lit up instantly. Rumsey gave Kreese another knowing look. Crystal understood, nodded slightly to Rumsey, and immediately changed her tune. "Oh dear, Lord Guas, I was just joking. Actually, I've already found a very excellent successor for the Supreme Kai." "Huh, you've already found it?" Jivas was taken aback, unsure how to respond for a moment. "Hey, Supreme Kai, you can have your disciple compete with the person Crystal found. Whoever is more suitable can be the Supreme Kai." Rumsey immediately chimed in, shouting loudly at the crystal ball. "Lord Rumsey is here too." Jivas chuckled awkwardly, "But this is a good idea, I think it's feasible." "Then, we'll go find the Supreme Kai in a few days and bring him to you," Crystal suggested. Okay, it's decided then." Jivas readily agreed. The call ended there. After ending the call, Kirsten looked at Rumsey with some confusion, wondering why he had done that. Bersey remained silent. "So this elephant wants me to become the Supreme Kai of Universe 10. If that's the case, then my competitor should be that guy named Zamaze. Should I become the Supreme Kai?" After careful consideration, Belie decided that becoming a Supreme Kai was also a very good choice, because the Supreme Kai possesses many special abilities. First, instant teleportation. Once you master teleportation, you can immediately return to planet Vegeta and take Jin and Bardock to a safe planet. "Wait a minute, I'm a Supreme Kai now, what do I have to fear from Frieza? Daring to act arrogantly in front of me, I'll wipe him out." Secondly, there are the Bitara earrings, which are combination earrings. Even if I don't use this earring myself, I can give it to Goku in the future. In addition, the Supreme Kai also possesses a time-space ring, allowing him to travel through time and space. However, it seems that one can only travel to the future, not back to the past. But none of that matters as long as I can travel through time. In addition, the Supreme Kai possesses a rather special crystal ball. Although it is not as powerful as the crystal ball on the Angel's Scepter, it still has unique abilities, allowing him to view a vast amount of information. In comparison, what does the God of Destruction have? Aside from possessing formidable strength, there doesn't seem to be anything special about him. Having great strength is something you can achieve by practicing diligently. So Belie thought about it carefully and realized that if he could become the Supreme Kai, it would definitely be of great benefit to his future development. "I'm determined to become the Supreme Kai." "What is Lord Rumsey thinking?" Keith asked. "I don't know why. But I have a bad feeling about Guas's retirement." Rumsey wiggled his trunk and said in a deep voice, "Who knows what kind of Supreme Kai he'll choose as his successor? What if he picks some unreliable Supreme Kai? I might just disappear one day without warning." "So, Lord Rumsey, do you think Bel's Bersey is more suitable?" Keith glanced at Bel's Bersey, then looked up at Rumsey to ask. Smack! Rumsey snapped his fingers lightly. Belie, a million grass mud horses galloped through Bersey's mind. "Here we go again, you wait. When I become powerful, I'll beat you to a pulp." The next moment, Belie felt a wave of dizziness and his mind went completely blank. "Oh dear, why is Lord Rumsey acting up again?" Kirsty sighed helplessly. As Belie fainted, she heard Kreese's last words and then she knew nothing more. "What are Lord Rumsey's thoughts?" Kiers asked curiously. Didn't you say this kid is still young? A kid this age, if properly nurtured, will definitely be obedient in the future. Rumsey grinned, revealing a set of fangs. If we really make him a Supreme Kai, it will be very beneficial to the development of the entire universe. At least he can cooperate well with me and play a better role in the construction of the universe. Kreese was speechless. He paused. That's true, but why did Lord Rumsey knock him out? Keith sighed helplessly. There are some things I don't want him to hear. Rumsey chuckled. But Lord Rumsey, aren't you afraid that after Belial becomes the Supreme Kai, your relationship with him will suffer? Cuss genuinely couldn't understand what Rumsey was thinking. It's all right, this is called giving a stick and then a sweet treat. Kids should be taught like this from a young age, otherwise how will they listen? Rumsey snorted. Belse's divine power is not very stable yet. If he were to actually run for Supreme Kai, he might not be a match for Lord Juaz's disciple, at least not in terms of combat. Koss offered a reasonable analysis. So I'll give him some time to train these next couple of days, and I'll also give him a few pointers. If he gets stronger, he'll naturally be grateful to me. Rumsey revealed a confident smile, and I'll also grant him a few requests. I don't believe that this little brat won't listen to me obediently from now on. All right, but I still advise Lord Rumsey not to go too far. Too much of a good thing can be bad, Kreese advised. Okay, Rumsey waved his hand dismissively and ordered, wake him up quickly. Kex gently waved her scepter at Belser from a distance. Beryl slowly woke up, leaped to his feet and glared angrily at Rumsey. I'll remember you, you knocked me out twice. I'll settle this score with you sooner or later. Hey kid, you heard what happened just now, right? Rumsey snorted, smiling as he watched Belsero. Train with Kirsten for the next couple of days. Once you've trained enough, we'll take you to the Supreme Kai world to compete for the title of Supreme Kai. Bercy did not speak. You don't know yet, do you? The Supreme Kai is the greatest god in this universe, Rumsey said with a laugh. And once you become a Supreme Kai, you can bring your family to live in the Supreme Kai realm. I'm doing this for your own good. Haven't you always wanted to bring your family over? How about it? Are you tempted? Okay, sure. Beryl nodded seriously. Rumsey suddenly felt that he had said so much and it seemed a bit superfluous. This kid actually agreed so readily. Then it's decided, all right. Rumsey said, wiggling his elephant trunk. What you need to do next is simple, train diligently with Kirsten. Since you have a naturally divine physique, defeating a King Kai shouldn't be a problem. I hope you won't disappoint me. Beryl did not object. Kid, you're pretty smart. Rumsey grinned, quite pleased with Beryl's attitude. Belsai originally wanted to become the Supreme Kai. And you can even train with Kreese. With such a great opportunity, only a lunatic would refuse. If you perform well, I can also teach you a few destructive skills that will definitely benefit you for life, Rumsey chuckled. Kex, let's begin. Belsey ignored Rumsey and looked at Kex, his eyes full of anticipation. Hey kid, are you even listening to me? Rumsey snapped angrily. Your attitude is really G me off. Then, Belser, unleash all your divine power so I can take a closer look, Kirsten said thoughtfully. Boom! Without hesitation, Belser unleashed his divine power with a frenzy. Wow, to cultivate divine power to this level without any guidance, truly worthy of a born divine physique. Kes nodded, praising. However, judging from the current situation, surpassing Lord Jevaz's disciple in just one day will probably be very difficult. Which Supreme Kai do you think Guas will choose as his apprentice Supreme Kai? Rumsey asked. It's highly likely to be King Zamasu of the North, Kirsten analyzed, then pondered. King Zamasu of the North, do you have any information on him? Rumsey asked. Detailed information is not available at the moment, but I've heard that King Zamasu of the North Kai is an extremely powerful King Kai, stronger than most Supreme Kais. If we really want to defeat him with Bel's current strength, there's still a long way to go. Koss gently shook her head. What did you say? That guy Zamasu is that powerful, stronger than a typical Supreme Kai? Rumsey was a bit overwhelmed, then suddenly had a brilliant idea. If all else fails, we can take this kid to another dimension. The flow of time there is different from outside, so he can train there for a longer period of time. No need to rush. Let me try to guide Belie and see how his aptitude is, Keith said thoughtfully. All right, you guys go ahead with your work. I'll go try some of the delicious food this kid cooked in the palace. Rumsey chuckled. Lord Rumsey is too cunning, Kirsty clicked her tongue. Don't worry, I'll save some for you, Rumsey said with a smile. Besides, this kid's a natural cook, you can always have some when you want. That's true. Kreese stopped objecting, gently waved her scepter and placed the food she had packed from the palace onto the lawn. Looking at the dozen or so dishes, Belsay was speechless for a moment. Not only did you kidnap me, you also packed up all the delicious food I cooked and brought it back with you. That's really going too far. Rumsey left the scene with the food. On this vast land, only Bells and Keith remain. Little brother Belie, we can begin. Kess giggled and gave Belie a sweet pinch on the cheek, her eyes curving into crescents. I hate it when people pinch my cheeks, Belsay shouted angrily, shoving Kirsty's hand away. Hee hee, little brother is so cute. Kess laughed even more happily and ruffled Belsay's hair. Teach me now, Belsay snorted, speaking in an annoyed tone. I need to go back and bring Jin and Bardock over. I need to improve my skills as soon as possible. Now that I've been transported to the Dragon Ball world, improving my own strength is the only way forward. Jin and Bardock treated me like their own son and I cannot let them down. I just heard from that guy Rumsey that my punch had a combat power of 1 million. It's only 1 million, which is nothing compared to Frieza's. Unless you can catch him off guard and kill him instantly, I'll see if I can further improve my strength under X's tutelage. Oh dear, actually, little Belial has accumulated a lot of divine power after 3 years of hard training. He just doesn't know how to use it very well. Kirsty held up her scepter again, scanning Belial's body through the crystal ball on it and said with a smile, with a little guidance, he can use this accumulated divine power to his advantage, and going toe-to-toe with that North Kai Mr. Zamasu shouldn't be a problem. Don't use this thing to scan me, it feels like I have no secrets from you at all. Belsay quickly dodged and said irritably, hee hee, I've seen everything I needed to see, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Kirsty smiled, her eyes crinkling into 2 crescent moons. Let's get back on track, no more unnecessary words. Belsay quickly changed the subject. All right, you attack me with all your might, try your best to hit me. Kirsty smiled brightly and waved to Bells. Understood. Beryl nodded coldly. The next moment divine power surged from Belsay's body and he immediately assumed an offensive stance. Whoosh! Belsay rushed towards Kiers and began punching and kicking her. Of course, Belsay knew perfectly well that with his current strength the possibility of hitting Kex was almost zero. Let alone his current self, even Goku in the future who has truly mastered Ultra Instinct might not be able to hit X. Sure enough, after fighting for a long time, Bellerin's efforts were essentially fruitless. Having goals is a good thing. Belsel relentlessly attacked Crystal. As time went on, Belser suddenly felt that his divine power had become more integrated, and the divine power he could use seemed to be more concentrated, which made him pause for a moment. At this moment, Belsay felt his divine power surge forth like a boundless river, overflowing like the Yellow River, unstoppable. Oh my, can you sense the continuous divine power? Crystal smiled as she looked at the Bell Raceway. This. Belser temporarily halted his attack, sensing his own immense divine power, and nodded solemnly. It begins with sensing one's own divine power, then integrating that power with oneself and controlling it at will. As she spoke, her expression turned slightly serious and she waved her hand towards a rock in the distance. The will arises from the heart moves with the will moves while the heart remains still. As soon as she finished speaking, a basketball-sized rock in the distance was lifted off the ground by Kirsten's control. Immediately afterwards, Kirsten raised her finger upwards. Whoosh! A stone the size of a basketball shot high into the sky, leaving a point of light in the starry sky before disappearing instantly. Fall! Kirsty's small mouth opened slightly and with a soft shout she pressed her slender hand down. Whoosh! The stone that had just shot out plummeted from the sky with tremendous force like a giant boulder, its sound of piercing the air echoing endlessly. Boom! With a deafening roar, the basketball-sized rock crashed onto the land of the god of destruction, leaving a small crater in its wake. Beryl nodded thoughtfully, clearly deeply impressed. Ordinary people generate energy through cultivation while gods condense divine power through cultivation. Because little brother Belie was born with a divine body, he cultivates divine power. You can think of divine power as a special kind of energy that is a level higher than ordinary energy, Keith explained and suggested. Try using my mind control technique to control things you want to control through divine power. Understood. Belie nodded, looked around, and spotted a rockery nearby. Kreese, why are you still staring at the artificial hill? Kears suddenly had a bad feeling. The will arises from the heart moves with the will moves but the heart remains still. Belie muttered to himself, and with a wave of his hand an invisible divine power swiftly covered the artificial hill. Kirsty quietly wiped away her sweat. We really need to control the artificial hills. Rise, Beryl shouted softly. Smack. The artificial hill trembled violently, slowly lifted off the ground and floated into the sky, hovering about 10 meters above the ground. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Beryl was panting heavily from exhaustion. It seems I still don't have enough control over divine power. Just controlling a rockery and he's exhausted like this. Fall! Beerus waved his hand in the air, increasing the force of his control. Instantly, the artificial hill began to sway and fly away into the distance, crashing towards Rumsey. Kreese. Kirsten covered her forehead, speechless for a moment. I said I had a bad feeling. So he went to get revenge on Lord Rumsey. Rumsey has already enjoyed several delicious meals and is eating so much that his elephant trunk is swaying back and forth. Just then, Rumsey saw a dark figure fall from the sky. Bang! With a wave of his hand, Rumsey sent the artificial mountain flying. Smack! The artificial hill landed perfectly in its original spot, fitting seamlessly as if nothing had happened. Hey kid, watch out. Don't bother me while I'm eating, Rumsey shouted from a distance. Belie, as expected of the god of destruction, with just a wave of his hand, he actually returned the artificial hill to its original position. Moreover, when the artificial hill fell, it didn't seem to stir up a single speck of dust. Lord Rumsey has mastered divine power to its fullest extent. Not bad, right? Keith smiled as she looked at Belie. Beerus nodded vigorously. What you need to do next is simple. Thoroughly understand the meaning of will follows the mind moves with the mind moves but the will remains still, and defeating King Kai Zamasu shouldn't be too much of a problem. Koss looked at Bells with admiration and added, by the way, I'll take you to a good place. A year of training, there will only be a day outside. Okay, Beryl readily agreed. If we could train in another dimension, that would be wonderful. There's not much time left. I need to become stronger as quickly as possible. I'll go and greet Lord Rumsey first, said Keith, appearing instantly beside Rumsey. Rumsey listened attentively to what Kears said for a few moments, then shook his trunk and called out from afar, Hey kid, come here. What are you doing? Beryl frowned. Hurry up and come here, kid. Why are you dawdling like that? Rumsey snorted. Beerus walked forward unhurriedly and appeared near Rumsey. Watch closely, I'll only demonstrate once. Rumsey glared at Belie, then slightly raised his right hand, chanting incantations. Divine technique destruction. Smack! A ball of purplish-red light quickly condensed in Rumsey's palm. With a gentle wave of his hand, Rumsey sent the crimson orb soaring into the sky. In an instant, the purplish-red sphere of light struck a decorative planet. Smack! Instantly, the decorative planet shattered like a soap bubble, turning into nothingness and disappearing completely. As a Dragon Ball fan, Belie wasn't really surprised by the God of Destruction technique. However, when he witnessed Rumsey casually destroy a planet, there was still a hint of shock in his eyes. Did you see that clearly? Rumsey smiled smugly. If you can master the divine control technique, destruction, dealing with that North Kai Zamasu will be much easier. As he spoke, Rumsey raised his hand again. A book appeared in his hand and tossed it to Beerus. Beryl immediately took the book and looked at the cover. The cover prominently displayed the words, Divine Technique Destruction, take it and study it yourself, Rumsey said, waving his elephant trunk. Belie didn't stand on ceremony. He simply shoved the book into his chest and turned to Kex, saying, Kex, take me to train. Okay. Kirsty nodded and extended her hand to Belle. Rumsey, kid, aren't you going to say thank you? Rumsey's face darkened. Belie ignored Rumsey and placed her hand in Kirsty's. Keith gently took Belie's small hand and tapped her scepter lightly on the ground. Instantly, a dazzling light like stars emanated from Kreese's body, evenly covering herself and Belie. Whoosh! The next moment, Cruz and Belie vanished into space, instantly leaving Rumsey and entering the vast expanse of space. Beerus glanced back at planet Rumsey. The planets Rumsey and Beerus look very similar. Both are inverted pyramid-shaped planets standing in a mysterious star field. Several stars shimmered on the planet, emitting various colors of light. Belie glanced at it a few times before turning her gaze away, savoring the excitement and anticipation of traveling through the stars. Approximately 5 minutes, Kirsty, holding Belie's hand, slowly descended onto a yellowish-brown planet. Before even landing on the ground, Belie spotted a colossal statue that had appeared on the planet. The statue looks very similar to Rumsey and is about 100 stories tall. It appears to be carved from a natural stone mountain. The statue is majestic and solemn, and it seems to have stood here for countless years. Smack! Cruz, carrying Belie, landed on the statue's nose. Entering from where your nose is will take you to another dimension, Crystal explained with a smile. Let's go in. Belie didn't know what to say. Suppressing his nausea, he stepped into the statue's nose. The inside of the statue's nose feels like a natural cave. Inside the cave, spring water flowed down and the air was damp, which was quite fitting for the occasion. Who was so bored as to create such a sculpture? Beerus couldn't help but ask. Lord Rumsey is, after all, the strongest god of destruction in this universe. It's perfectly normal for humans to create a statue of Lord Rumsey, Kreese explained with a smile. I feel like there are no humans on this planet, Beryl asked after thinking for a moment. Wow, you sensed it all. Amazing, you're right, the humans on this planet migrated away about 1,000 years ago to live on other planets, Kirsten explained. Because the humans on this planet excessively damaged the ecological environment, leading to irreversible desertification, they eventually had to leave this planet. Now that Rumsey's idol has been created, won't Rumsey help them? Belie asked casually. Lord Rumsey is a god of destruction. Actually, they should create a statue of the Supreme Kai. The Supreme Kai might be able to help them a lot, Crystal replied with a laugh. Beerus was speechless for a moment. After passing through the cave dwelling and reaching the end of the nose passage, Belie saw a heavy metal door in front of him. This is it. Keith stepped forward and gently opened the door, then took Belie's hand and entered the other dimensional space. On entering this space, Belie immediately felt a wave of stuffiness, and his breathing became somewhat labored. This is a fairly ordinary-looking room with 2 small beds. On the left side of the small bed were several strange jars. The other side of the jar resembles a bathroom and toilet. The room felt and was similar to a space imbued with a sense of time and spirit. Most things were white and the colors were monotonous. Thud! Kears closed the door. This is the other dimensional space. Once the door is closed, will we be unable to sense any information from the outside? Keith asked with a smile. Beerus nodded. Over there is the bathroom and toilet, and the jars contain flour and water, Curse explained. I'll show you another world. I'm sure you'll be amazed when you see it. After she finished speaking, Kirsten took Belie's hand and led her outside the room. Although Belle had somewhat anticipated this, he was still incredibly shocked when he saw the vast expanse of white earth outside. This must be what it means to be truly immersed in the experience. This environment truly gives one the feeling of wanting to go crazy. This place is as vast as a planet, Kirsty smiled. You'd better be careful or you might get lost and starve to death out here. Beerus nodded vigorously. The temperature here in your Saiyan terms ranges from about 50 degrees Celsius to minus 40 degrees Celsius. The air density is only a quarter of that on planet Vegeta, but the gravity is the same, Koss explained with a smile. Let's see how long you can last in here. How long can I stay? Belie asked, looking up. There's no time limit. Let's see how long you can last, Kirsten replied, slightly taken aback. What about 10 years? Beryl asked again. Kreese. A brief silence. No problem, there's enough food here to last 10 years, Curse replied. Understood. Beryl nodded. Kirsten was speechless for a few seconds, then looked down at Belie and asked, You don't really want to stay in there for 10 years, do you? Let's see. If we can adapt to the environment, staying there for more than 10 years shouldn't be a problem, Belie said thoughtfully. Little brother, don't underestimate this space. Staying in this kind of space for 10 years might drive you crazy. Keith laughed and pinched Belie's cheek. Belie quickly shoved Kirsty's hand aside. That's outrageous, he pinches my cheek all the time. I'll stay with you for another 2 or 3 days, the rest of the time you can focus on your cultivation, Kreese said with a smile. But please don't push yourself. If you really can't stand it anymore, you can leave. Understood, Beerus replied. Afterwards, Keith stayed with Belie in this alternate dimension for 3 days and pointed out some problems with Belie's cultivation. Belie wrote everything down. Well then, good luck, I'm leaving now. Kirsty pinched Belie's cheek again and handed her a communicator. Keep this safe. If you really can't hold back anymore, leave this space first, then contact me through the communicator and I'll come pick you up. Belie nodded and saw Kreese off from the other dimensional space. Keith waved goodbye to Belie. Beryl slowly closed the heavy metal door. Kreese turned around and in a flash appeared outside the statue, transforming into a streak of light as dazzling as a star, instantly disappearing into the starry sky. 5 minutes later, Kirsten returned to Rumsey and appeared beside him. Rumsey is still enjoying the food he packed from planet Vegeta. Kirsty picked up her chopsticks, took a piece of braised pork and put it in her mouth, savoring it in small bites. How's it going, Kess? That kid's got some talent, right? Rumsey asked, looking at Kess. Not just okay, he's practically gifted. With proper training, he definitely has the potential to become a god of destruction, Kreese commented. Upon hearing Kreese's words, Rumsey's lips twitched involuntarily, his eyes widening in disbelief. This kid has such great potential. Yes, Kirsty nodded slightly. How long does he plan to stay there to train? Rumsey asked, taking a bite of a slice of pizza. He said he'd stay inside for 10 years, Kirsten said with a smile. Rumsey, what a load of bull, this little brat doesn't know his place, wanting to stay in that kind of place for 10 years. I bet he'll be out of there in less than 3 months. I don't believe an ordinary human could last that long. Besides, he's too young. 3 months is definitely his limit. Rumsey snorted, wagging his trunk. Even if he were born with a divine body before he became a god, he still needed food and water to replenish his strength. That's the tragedy of being human. Let's make a bet. If he can hold out for more than 3 months, Lord Rumsey will be in charge of cleaning the planet for the next year, Keith said with a grin. Sure, if he comes out within 3 months, you'll still be in charge of cleaning up the planet, Rumsey snorted. Deal. Kirsty nodded in agreement. But then again, this kid's cooking is truly unique. Rumsey savored the delicious pizza, his mouth agape in a wide grin. Delicious, delicious. Kirsty picked up a skewer of now-cold grilled meat and stomped her feet happily as she ate it. Wait a minute, weren't we supposed to be looking for a cook? How did we end up training a Supreme Kai? Rumsey suddenly realized he'd gone astray. It was purely accidental, Kreese said with a laugh, putting the skewers on the ground, then picking up a cold Orleans chicken wing, taking a bite and continuing, by the way, why did Lord Rumsey teach him to destroy things? Belie is running for Supreme Kai. You just don't understand, do you? Rumsey smiled mysteriously. If this kid successfully becomes the Supreme Kai and he knows how to destroy, then while he's building planets, he can also conveniently destroy some unwanted ones. Wouldn't that be killing 2 birds with 1 stone? Kirsten's beautiful eyes widened immediately, blinking rapidly as she looked at Rumsey with disbelief. That Beerus guy has someone destroying planets for him while he sleeps, how carefree. Rumsey snorted, wiggling his elephant trunk, and said even more smugly, my Supreme Kai is building and destroying planets at the same time, so I, the god of destruction, can just lie back and relax. Isn't that even more comfortable than Beerus's situation? When Beerus finds out, he'll definitely be envious and jealous. Dear, oh dear, the Supreme Kai we're raising just happens to be an abandoned human from Universe 7. Crystal smiled radiantly. That's exactly right. Rumsey grinned slyly. The two continued to enjoy their meal. A few more minutes passed. Kex, what do you think are the chances of this kid becoming a Supreme Kai? Rumsey asked, grabbing a chicken leg and taking a bite. There's at least a 90% chance, Kirsten said thoughtfully. Take some time to get that kid Belie's family off that planet and settle them on a suitable one, Rumsey said seriously to Keith after a moment's thought. Didn't Lord Rumsey not want to get involved with them? Keers asked with a grin. I only wanted him to come to this planet as a cook who knew things would turn out like this, Rumsey scoffed. If he really becomes a Supreme Kai, it's better to maintain a good relationship. That way he'll feel comfortable working for me. As a god of destruction, the last thing I want to do is work, even though destroying a planet is as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. Sorceress was speechless but nodded in agreement. She picked up the scepter and used the crystal ball on it to check the condition of planet Vegeta. Upon seeing this, Kirsten's pretty face changed color slightly. What's wrong? Rumsey asked. Oh dear, that human who works for Lord Beerus seems to be preparing to destroy planet Vegeta, Koss replied. So fast? Didn't that guy say last time that he was going to destroy planet Vegeta in a month? Rumsey was taken aback. Perhaps they've changed their minds, Kreese replied, then asked Rumsey, Shall we go now, Lord Rumsey? Go there right away. Don't worry about anyone except his family, Rumsey said thoughtfully. HMPH, a god of destruction going to save a few ordinary humans. If the other gods of destruction knew about this, they'd laugh their heads off. You go yourself. I won't go. By the way, even if you do go, you'd better disguise yourself a little so the other gods of destruction don't find out. All right then. Kirst didn't object and gently waved her scepter at the food on the ground. Whoosh! The food laid out on the lawn vanished instantly, collected by Keith into another dimension. Keers, leave the food behind, Rumsey exclaimed urgently. Lord Rumsey, please don't eat alone here. We'll eat together when I get back, Kirsty said sternly, tapping her scepter lightly on the ground. Whoosh! A dazzling light erupted from Kreese, transforming her into a streak of light and instantly departing from planet Rumsey. Rumsey, damn it, Kirsty, you shameless B**********. Rumsey yelled from below, however, Kirsten has already disappeared. Universe 7, the region containing planet Vegeta, Frieza's spaceship. Whoosh! The spaceship streaked across the starry sky and quickly appeared in the outer atmosphere of planet Vegeta. Is Lord Frieza going to destroy planet Vegeta tonight? Belibus asked, somewhat surprised. Suddenly I don't want to wait that long anymore. Didn't you say most of the Saiyans have already returned? Frieza's face showed a faint smile. That's true, but there are still a small number of Saiyans on their way back. But they will definitely change their plans after learning of planet Vegeta's destruction, Beryl pondered. Give the order, shoot down every Saiyan on their way through space. Frieza grinned contemptuously. Yes, Belie immediately ran off to make the arrangements. Crunch! Frieza's spaceship hatch slowly opened. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! One after another, figures swiftly appeared in the outer atmosphere of planet Vegeta, their eyes fixed intently on the blue planet Vegeta in the starry sky. Frieza leaped onto the stroller, her smile growing even brighter. Lord Frieza, to celebrate this wonderful day, shall we begin with a dance? This is a dance we've rehearsed for a long time. Captain Ginyu stepped forward with a smile and bowed. Frieza immediately sensed that she was in a bad mood. No need. Frieza waved his hand. Then let's dance when the fireworks light up the sky, Captain Ginyu chuckled. Frieza was speechless and simply replied, whatever. Then, Frieza said nothing more and gently raised his right hand, extending one finger. Smack. Instantly, a ball of black and red flame condensed on Frieza's fingertips. The flame instantly grew larger, quickly expanding to a diameter of several hundred meters. Oh, 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 oh. Frieza let out a series of eerie laughs, pressed his large hand down and sent the planet-destroying bullet hurtling towards planet Vegeta below. Planet Vegeta, Royal Palace, Mr. Dodoria, have a drink. King Vegeta raised his glass high and smiled at Dodoria. No problem. Dodoria smiled, ate a few bites of food, then shook her head and said, I heard your chef is quite skilled, but it seems the taste is rather average. Perhaps he didn't perform well today. King Vegeta's face turned cold as he ordered his subordinates, pass on my order, kill the royal chef who cooked today. Yes, one of his men immediately obeyed. Go and order some more dishes and find a skilled royal chef. Vegeta ordered another subordinate. Yes. The subordinate quickly bowed. King Vegeta smiled and got to the point, saying to Dodoria, "As agreed, after conquering that super planet, we Saiyans must obtain at least 80% of its resources. Since Lord Frieza has already agreed, there won't be any problems." Dodoria laughed but inwardly cursed King Vegeta as an idiot. "Do you really think there's some superstar? I only came here to try and calm you down. Your planet Vegeta will soon be destroyed by Lord Frieza. Beep beep." Just then, Dodoria suddenly received a message from Sabo through the detector. "What, is that so? I'm still on planet Vegeta." Dodoria was startled. "Hurry up and get on. If you get killed, it's just bad luck," Sabo said with a smile. "What happened?" King Vegeta noticed that Dodoria's expression was not good and quickly asked. "It's nothing serious." Dodoria grinned, abruptly standing up. "No need for more food, I have to go. We agreed on 80% of the resources. I hope Frieza won't go back on his word." King Vegeta added again, Understood. Dodoria soared into the sky and quickly left the palace. King Vegeta rose to see him off, his eyes narrowing as he quickly noticed the fiery red orb of light that had appeared in the sky. "What is that?" King Vegeta's pupils contracted and he suddenly had a bad feeling. Axe house. Bardock was still comforting his wife Jin. Jin calmed herself down, her chest heaving as she took deep breaths and the melancholy in her heart lessened slightly. "It's getting late, let's rest first. Tomorrow I'll go ask Frieza's army. Maybe Frieza's people want to take Belie to be their cook," Bardock said in a deep voice. "Being Frieza's cook must be a terrible thing." Jin's face paled again. "I will absolutely not let them succeed." Bardock clenched his fists tightly. However, the next moment Bardock seemed to sense something. His face suddenly changed color and he quickly glanced out the window. "Bardock, what's wrong?" Jin was taken aback. "Oh no, I sense a powerful energy approaching. I feel a sense of impending death." Bardock kicked open the door and rushed out of the room. Jin followed closely behind. The two looked up at the sky. Above the sky, a huge fireball rolled down toward the Earth with overwhelming force as if it were about to devour the entire planet. What is that? A meteorite?" Jin was stunned, her eyes wide with shock. "No, it's not a meteorite, it's an energy blast," Bardock exclaimed in shock and rage, his body trembling violently. "An energy blast? Who released this energy blast? Is it meant to destroy planet Vegeta?" Jin's face turned ashen, then she suddenly said with a hint of relief, "So, it's all the better that Belie can leave this planet. It must have been Frieza who did it. I won't let him get away with this." Bardock roared in fury and immediately leaped into the air. "Bardock, where are you going?" Jin panicked and shouted at Bardock. "I'll go and knock that falling energy blast away." Bardock smiled back, then resolutely rushed into the sky, hurtling towards the falling planet-destroying blast. "Hey, be careful!" Jin's eyes were full of worry. Whoosh! Bardock was incredibly fast, appearing near the location of the planet-destroying missile in an instant. "Energy blast!" Bardock roared, unleashing a burst of energy from his hands. A massive amount of energy rapidly condensed from Bardock's hand and hurtled towards the planet-destroying bomb high in the sky. The energy released by Bardock was instantly devoured by the planet-destroying missile the moment it made contact with it, leaving nothing behind. Bardock's pupils contracted and he was immediately shocked, his expression changing repeatedly. Immediately afterwards, Bardock gritted his teeth and golden light suddenly emanated from his body. This is Bardock's latest form, which he has mastered on Cyril, and it is not a transformation. This form allows one to quickly double their strength. "Now we should have a result." Bardock's voice was deep as he roared towards the planet-destroying missile, stretching out his arms to block the falling missile and try to knock it away. However, the instant Bardock's hands touched the planet-destroying missile, he suddenly felt the deathly danger it brought. At that moment, Bardock instantly realized that the difference in strength between himself and Frieza was like heaven and earth. "The difference is too big." Bardock showed no sign of giving up, unleashing a torrent of energy that was channeled entirely into the planet-destroying missile. However, the energy released by Bardock only caused a small ripple on the planet-destroying missile and was quickly swallowed up by its immense force. Immediately afterwards, the planet-destroying missile rained down on Bardock. Bardock's eyes were filled with utter despair. "I haven't even acknowledged Belie yet. I can't die." Whoosh! Bardock vanished without a trace thanks to the planet destroyer bomb, the very moment Bardock disappeared. A streak of light as dazzling as a star flashed through the air and quickly appeared near the planet-destroying missile. Oh dear, I rushed over but I'm still too late. Kreese sighed softly, raising her scepter high. Looks like I'll have to use the time loop. However, just as Crystal was about to use the time loop, she took one last deep look at the spot where Bardock had disappeared. Upon seeing this, Keith immediately showed a look of surprise. It's unbelievable that he's still alive. Traveling through time? Cress muttered thoughtfully, then pondered. He might have been sucked into a spatial rift caused by time-space fluctuations. The planet-destroying missile continued its downward descent, carrying with it the force of a monstrous wave. After a brief hesitation, Cuss ignored Bardock's whereabouts, transformed into a beautiful girl dressed in Saiyan attire and appeared beside Jin in an instant. "Who are you?" Haim's beautiful eyes flickered and she was slightly taken aback. "Come with me." Kreese extended her hand to Jin. "Where to?" Jin asked curiously. "I'll take you away from this planet," Kirsten replied. "Where is Bardock?" Jin asked anxiously. "This is a complicated matter to explain. You can think of it as, he's dead," Kirsten said. Jinee's face turned pale instantly, her body went limp and she almost collapsed to the ground. "Let's go, this planet is about to be destroyed." Kirsten turned her head to look at the falling planet-destroying missiles. "I won't leave. Now that Bardock is dead, I will perish with planet Vegeta," Jin said stubbornly, her eyes filled with determination. Kreese, there was a moment of silence. Smack! On a sudden inspiration, Kirsten snapped her fingers. Jin's mind went blank for a moment and she fainted. Kreese stepped forward and hoisted Jin onto her shoulder. As if possessing its own will, Jin's tail instantly wrapped around Kreese's arm. Kreese turned her head to look at the tail wrapped around her arm and was speechless for a moment. What is the relationship between this woman and Beryl? Then, Kirsten looked up again at the planet-destroying missile rolling down. At this moment, the planet-destroying missile was getting closer and closer to the ground. It's late at night, almost 11 p.m., and most Saiyans are already asleep. A few Saiyans did discover this giant meteorite and unleashed energy blasts in an attempt to shatter it. However, it was all in vain. The energy released by the Saiyan was instantly absorbed by the aura of the planet destroyer the moment it came into contact with it. "Oh dear, let's go." Kass didn't destroy the planet-destroying missile, she just said it casually, then carried Jin and instantly vanished into space, quickly leaving the star system where planet Vegeta was located. Kass knew perfectly well that Beerus wanted to destroy planet Vegeta. As an angel of Universe 10, it is inappropriate for me to interfere with the work of the god of destruction of Universe 7. Not long after Koro and Jin left planet Vegeta, a spectacular display of fireworks suddenly lit up the distant planet Vegeta's sky. Kreese glanced back and quickened her pace. Out 10 more minutes passed, Cruz and Jin arrived on a planet and found an uninhabited room. "Put you here." Kess gently placed Jin on the bed, then raised her hand, conjuring a scepter. She peered into the crystal ball on the scepter and murmured to herself, "This planet is called Adelaide. The people on it are friendly and possess many special abilities. Furthermore, this planet won't face any problems in the short term, nor will it suffer any devastating attacks. You're safe here." After saying this briefly, Keith ignored Jin and appeared outside the house in a flash, tapping her scepter lightly on the ground. Whoosh! Kreese transformed into a streak of light as dazzling as a star, instantly disappearing into the starry sky and vanishing without a trace. A certain planet? Vegeta, Nappa, Raditz, and several other teenagers had just wiped out all the humans on this planet and were eating to replenish their energy. At that moment, the detector on Naba's eyes suddenly received a message and his expression changed. "What's wrong?" Raditz asked, turning his head. "News just came from Frieza's army. Planet Vegeta was struck by a giant meteor and has been destroyed," Nappa said in a deep voice. "Is that so?" Raditz was stunned. "Almost all the Saiyans are dead." Nappa's face was extremely grim. "Didn't they know a meteor was approaching?" Raditz asked, a mixture of surprise and relief in his voice. "We survived only because we ignored Frieza's orders and left planet Vegeta. We were really lucky." "Tusk, now there's no way I can be King Vegeta," Vegeta said calmly. Raditz, there was a brief silence. Vegeta, you have a younger brother, right? Raditz asked. Yeah, I don't know how he is. Vegeta shook his head, but that guy was a low-ranking warrior sent to another planet a long time ago. Never mind, I'm not interested in him. Raditz, you have a younger brother too, right? Naba turned to ask Raditz. Yes, he's a low-ranking soldier too, and he's 3 years old and still in a nursing machine, Raditz said with a look of disdain. But he gets along really well with my Beryl, who was born on the same day, month, and year. The Belie you mentioned is the royal chef, right? Naba smiled. That's right, let's ignore him. That guy named Belie isn't even a combatant. Raditz shook his head, then patted his forehead, suddenly remembering something. Oh right, my mom said she and my dad sent Kakarot to a planet called Earth last night. As they were talking, a girl who looked about 5 or 6 years old came running from a distance. She had a round face as delicate and luscious as a red apple. Her large eyes were bright and lively like twinkling stars. Her eyelashes were thick and long, trembling slightly like small fans. Although she is only 5 or 6 years old, judging from her appearance, she will definitely grow up to be an absolute beauty. Her name is Poroko, a female Saiyan whose fighting strength is rated as low-class warrior. Boryuoki's combat power has now reached the passing grade of 300, making her the weakest member of the team. What happened? Why do you look so worried? Boryuk asked curiously, her voice clear and melodious like heavenly music. When they saw Boryuki approaching, all the boys in the room glanced at her. Raditz, tell her, Naba instructed Raditz. Why should I say it? Raditz asked reluctantly. It was you who insisted on bringing her along, coming out to fight with a burden in tow. Naba snorted, looking at Boryuki with disdain. Boroko bit her lip and glared angrily at Naba. Naba turned his head away, ignoring him. Actually, it's not a big deal. We just received information that planet Vegeta was destroyed by a meteorite impact, Raditz said to Poroko with a smile. Boroko's beautiful eyes widened in shock, blinking rapidly as she stood frozen in place. A brief silence. Stop joking, this joke isn't funny at all. Boroko shook her head skeptically. Who's joking with you? Raditz scoffed. Are you serious? Boroko was stunned. How is this possible? With our Saiyan technology and fighting power, could a single meteorite destroy our planet? There are many meteorites in the universe that travel faster than a spaceship. Vegeta, who had been mostly silent, stood up, glanced at the sky and said calmly, if we encounter a similar meteorite and it's large enough, destroying a planet would be incredibly easy. It was nighttime, everyone was asleep. If it were daytime, we might have been able to bring that meteorite down, Naba said from the side. This is real. Boroko looked up at the distant starry sky, murmuring, Belie. What a pity, Belie may have perished along with planet Vegeta. Raditz grinned from the side. I'll kill you! Boroko turned and glared at Raditz, charging towards her with bared teeth and claws. Raditz made a face and quickly made his escape. All right, tell me about the next planet we're going to, Vegeta said coldly. Prajna stopped immediately, not daring to act recklessly in front of Vegeta. However, Boryuk's eyes had unknowingly turned red. A few seconds later, 2 streams of hot tears flowed down Boryuki's face. She wiped away her tears with the back of her hand, stubbornly pouted and stomped her foot on the ground in frustration. Vegeta glanced at her sideways, then ignored her. It was around 1,000 years ago, planet Plant. After an unknown amount of time, Bardock suddenly opened his eyes and looked around. This is a stone house. It's not very big, it contains a small bed and some commonly used items. Immediately afterwards, Bardock felt a series of intense pains in his head. Is this hell? It doesn't feel like it. Am I still alive? Bardock rubbed his head and muttered to himself. Gritting his teeth, Bardock got out of bed and looked out the window. Blue sky, green plants. The scenery outside the window feels like it's from planet Vegeta. That's so strange. Where am I? How did I get here? That damned Frieza, I never imagined he was this strong. I'm no match for him at all. Bardock clenched his fists tightly, his body trembling violently. You're awake, a voice Sue. A voice suddenly rang out behind Bardock. Bardock paused for a moment, then immediately turned to look behind him and saw 2 aliens, one tall and one short. These two aliens had pale purple skin, peculiar appearances, large purple oval heads, and two antenna-like eyeballs standing upright on their heads. Bardock remained calm, showing no surprise whatsoever. After all, Bardock had fought on alien planets for many years and had seen far too many races, including some similar to this one. "Haha, I'm the village doctor, my name is Ibana and this is my son, Belie." The tall alien smiled amicably and introduced himself. "When we found you, you were already collapsed in that forest over there. Belie brought you back." Bardock nodded thoughtfully. "Your injuries aren't fully healed yet." "Here's some healing medicine, let me put some on you," Ibana said, taking a small bottle and grabbing Bardock's arm to sprinkle the medicine onto the wound. Bardock raised an eyebrow. "Isn't this the healing fluid from the treatment chamber?" As the healing potions were applied to Bardock's arm, the wound was healing at a visible rate. "Where is this place?" Bardock asked. "True Village," Ibana replied. "Bardock, what planet is this?" Bardock had no choice but to change his question. "Plant planet?" Ibana said with a smile. Bardock's face stiffened, his eyes widened, and he looked utterly incredulous. "Planet plant? I remember that the ancient planet Vegeta was originally called Planet Plant. How did I end up on this planet? Could it be that I've traveled through time? Does this mean I've traveled back over 1,000 years? If that's really the case, Jin, Bels, Kakarot, how can I find you?" Modern Universe 10 Planet Rumsey, a streak of light as dazzling as a star flashed through the air. Smack. Kos flew swiftly from the distant stars and slowly descended to the ground, appearing beside Rumsey. "How's it going? Is everything settled, Kirsten?" Rumsey asked, wiggling his elephant trunk. "It's all better now, they're all alive." Kirsty nodded. "That's good." Rumsey chuckled, glanced at the time, and pondered. "More than 3 hours have passed. That's equivalent to 50 days inside, right? That kid's not bad, he actually managed to last 50 days. Perhaps he really can hold out for more than 3 months. I think it will be Lord Rumsey who loses." Kreese smiled confidently. "We'll just have to wait and see," Rumsey said nonchalantly. "Hurry up and bring out all the food you took earlier, I haven't had enough yet." With a wave of her scepter, Kreese conjured up all the delicacies she had taken away earlier. The two continued eating. After eating for about half an hour, Rumsey, having eaten and drunk his fill, stretched and yawned repeatedly, his trunk curled up. "I'm so bored, I'm going to take a nap," Rumsey said to Kirsty, then went to a deck chair by the lake to sleep. Soon, Rumsey's snoring became as loud as thunder. Kirsten blinked her bright, large eyes, suddenly becoming interested. Then, Kirsty took a piece of Orleans chicken wing and quietly held it to Rumsey's mouth. Rumsey's nose automatically curled over and he took a deep sniff. Kirsty suppressed a laugh and gently pinched Rumsey's nose. In just a short while, Rumsey's face turned bright red. Kirsty loosened her grip on Rumsey's nose slightly, put the chicken wing back to his mouth, and smiled happily. As she was laughing, Keith suddenly noticed that Rumsey's eyes moved. Whoosh! With a flicker, Kreese vanished from the spot. Rumsey opened his eyes, shook his head to look around, then turned over and went back to sleep. Kirsty covered her mouth, laughing uncontrollably. Another hour or so passed. Whoosh! In the distant starry sky, a fiery red flame streaked towards planet Rumsey at incredible speed. Kreese paused slightly, looking at the ball of flame with some surprise. The flames left a red tail in the sky, appearing instantly high above Rumsey's location and freezing there motionless. A brief stop. Whoosh. A burst of flame shot out from the fireball and struck Rumsey, who was sleeping below, without any hesitation. Kreese, Kirsten immediately covered her forehead, looking utterly speechless. Rumsey is fast asleep. The flames rolled down and struck Rumsey directly, igniting a raging inferno on his body. Rumsey didn't react much at first, even wiggling his trunk and muttering, "Hey, Kirsty, why is it so hot? What are you doing?" Kiers remained silent. "Don't blame everything on me, okay? Hot." "Hot? Why is it so hot?" Rumsey grimaced. The next moment, Rumsey suddenly woke up and immediately sat up from the recliner. Rumsey looked down and realized that his pants were on fire. Rumsey remained calm and simply blew a breath into the flame. Smack. The fire on Rumsey's trousers went out immediately. By this time, the flames had spread from Rumsey's trousers to the recliner he was sitting on. Thud! One leg of the recliner turned to ashes. With a loud crash, Rumsey's deckchair collapsed and shattered into pieces. Rumsey even tripped and fell on his backside, but then Rumsey leaped up from the ground and looked around. "Kiers, you jerk, can you stop making such ridiculous jokes?" Rumsey yelled, his nostrils flaring with anger. "Lord Rumsey, it really wasn't me." Kirsty shook her head. "Who else could it be but you?" Rumsey shouted angrily. As soon as he finished speaking, the ball of flame that had just appeared slowly descended and came into Rumsey's sight. Rumsey paused, staring intently at the fiery red flame opposite him. "What is it?" Something happened that surprised Rumsey. The fiery red flame crackled and popped in the air, rapidly twisting and deforming. It took less than 3 seconds. Smack! The fiery red light quickly transformed into a handsome young man. The boy was dressed in Saiyan attire with his hair standing on end, handsome features, and a tall, well-proportioned figure. Kreese gave the boy a deep look, then immediately took out her scepter and looked at the crystal ball inside, her eyes filled with surprise. However, after a brief moment of surprise, Keith seemed to understand and immediately felt relieved. "Who are you, kid?" Rumsey's face darkened, then he immediately turned to Kirsten and asked, "Kirsten, are you your friend?" "It's me," the boy said, his voice slightly childish yet carrying a hint of maturity. Rumsey was taken aback again and looked the boy up and down. "That's right, I am." The boy stopped abruptly. Immediately afterwards, the boy hovered motionless in the air as if frozen in place. Rumsey was a little confused. "You should say it. Belie." The boy then moved his body slightly and uttered the last 3 words. What did you say?" Rumsey's face stiffened and he looked at the boy floating in the air with some surprise, his eyes full of disbelief. "That's right, I'm Belser." Belser grinned. "Are you kidding me?" Rumsey shook his head, skeptical. "You were only in there for less than 3 months, weren't you?" "To be precise, it's been exactly 90 days, Bersey replied. That's not the point. The point is, how could you have grown so much in just 90 days? Rumsey snorted. Whoosh. As Rumsey spoke, he moved swiftly and appeared beside Bersey in an instant, looking him up and down. "Where's your tail?" Rumsey asked, noticing that Belsey's tail was missing. "That's all," Beryl said calmly. Rumsey sensed something was increasingly wrong. He grabbed Beryl's arm and looked at him strangely. "What's going on? How did you transform yourself into a simple divine being?" "Not bad, right?" Bersey asked with a smile. "Rumsey, idiot, where's your original body?" Rumsey shouted angrily. "No, thank you." A smile appeared on Bersey's face. What do you want this mere divine power body for?" Rumsey was truly speechless and couldn't help but shout at him. "A pure divine body, immortal and indestructible, how wonderful." Belsey's smile grew even brighter. After saying this, Belsey's body suddenly swelled up. "What are you doing, kid?" Rumsey suddenly had a bad feeling. "Wait a minute, it's lagging a bit." Bersey scratched his head. Rumsey looked completely bewildered. However, at that very moment when Rumsey was somewhat stunned, boom! With a deafening roar, Belsey's body exploded in a massive blast. A large mushroom cloud instantly appeared at the scene. Rumsey was covered in dust and dirt from the explosion, after everything calmed down. Countless fiery red points of light rapidly coalesced and distorted. In just a few seconds, the fiery red light transformed into flames, which then changed back to the appearance of the young man from before. Looking at Rumsey, although he was mostly unharmed, he was blown to bits. "It's not very harmful but extremely insulting. Isn't it interesting?" Belsey smiled and looked at Rumsey. "You brat, I'll kill you," Rumsey roared in fury. A flash of purplish-red light appeared on his body and he instantly returned to his original form, baring his fangs and claws as he charged towards Belsey. Belsey reacted extremely quickly, appearing behind Crystal in a flash. The moment their eyes met, Belsey winked at her. Kreese didn't speak but gave Belsey a deep look. "Kiers, step aside, let me teach this kid a lesson," Rumsey said angrily, his face dark. "It's getting late, let's go see the Supreme Kai first," Crystal said with a smile to Rumsey. Rumsey hesitated for a moment but ultimately decided not to make things difficult for Bersey, fearing he might accidentally kill him. A brief silence. "But speaking of which, Kex, that kid only stayed in that alternate dimension for 90 days, so you lost." Rumsey suddenly chuckled, pointing at Kex and laughing heartily. As agreed, you'll still be responsible for cleaning this planet for the next year. Oh dear, Lord Rumsey, I didn't lose, Kirsty said with a smile. You still say you haven't lost. This kid's only been 90 days and he's already out, Rumsey shouted, pointing at bells behind Kirsty and shaking his elephant trunk. Lord Rumsey will find out later. Kreese didn't seem inclined to reveal the reason. What, can't accept defeat? Rumsey snorted. Kex, in my current state, defeating that King Kai from the north named Zamasu shouldn't be a problem, right? Belie changed the subject and asked Kex. Judging from the strength of your divine power, the two of you are roughly equal in strength, Kex said, using the crystal ball on her scepter to scan Belie again. However, your physique is rather special. A pure divine power body is immortal and indestructible, giving you a fairly high chance of winning. Shall we set off now? Belie looked at Keith with a hint of anticipation. Kid, defeating your opponent is the first step to becoming a Supreme Kai. Besides that, to become a true Supreme Kai, you'll need to pass other tests. Rumsey snorted, then called to Kuz, tell this kid about the duties of a Supreme Kai, test his mental fortitude. Yes, Lord Rumsey, Kreese didn't object, turning to look at Belie. Let's talk over there, Belie said, pointing into the distance. Keith nodded in agreement and flew away into the distance with Belie. As Rumsey watched Belle's disappearing figure, he felt something was off. As for what was strange about it, Rumsey couldn't quite put his finger on it. A mere divine body? Is this kid stupid? Why cultivate oneself to the point of eliminating the physical body? Soon, Keith and Belie landed on the ground not far away. I didn't expect you to fly back on your own, Kirsten said with a smile to Bell Raceway. Several have flown by, Bell exclaimed. However, Beryl stopped speaking abruptly halfway through his sentence. Kreese, he remained frozen for about 3 seconds. I won't be back for hours, Belie continued. Kreese was speechless. Kiers, I think you should know my current situation. Everything else is fine, it's just that it gets stuck every now and then. Can you handle that? Bells asked. Kirsten was immediately at a loss for words, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. A brief silence. That's normal. After all, the alternate dimension and our world are different and the flow of time is completely different, Kreese replied. You've managed to control this simple divine body in the alternate dimension to this extent, which is already quite remarkable. Time there is slower, while time here is much, much faster. What I'm more curious about is, how did you manage to synchronize time? I only anticipated the actions I wanted to anticipate, Beryl said with a smile. Kreese was speechless. Time synchronization isn't the main issue. The main issue is there no solution to this lag? Fighting that guy Zamasu like this, we're prone to messing up at crucial moments, Bells asked again. I'll help you this once, but this is a one-time exception, said Kreese, waving her scepter at Belie from a distance. An invisible angelic power quickly enveloped him and she explained, this should eliminate the lag, however it will only last for 2 hours at most. To completely eliminate the lag, you'll need to continuously hone your mind and increase the strength of your divine body. Thank you, Kirsten. Belie quickly expressed her gratitude and stretched her body again. This time, Belie clearly felt that the sluggishness in his body had completely disappeared. I used to feel some lag, but now even that lag is gone. Unfortunately, it could only last for 2 hours. But speaking of which, Bells, are you really planning to cultivate this divine power body? Keith asked. This body is so great now, immortal and indestructible, it will never disappear and it can even survive in outer space, Belie chuckled. Besides, who knows that my true body is still in that other dimension? You don't really want to stay in there for 10 years, Curse asked again. Staying for 10 years at once is too hard on myself. Beryl scratched his head and chuckled. I'll come out for a while to clear my head, then go back. Kreese, hurry up, cuss, teach me some basic knowledge that a Supreme Kai should know. I'm determined to become the Supreme Kai, Belie urged, his expression turning serious. Do you intend to use this body to become a Supreme Kai? Kreese asked. Can't I? Beerus asked back. Sure, there's no precedent for it, but it's not against the rules, Kirsten replied after a moment's thought. That's fine then, Beryl nodded. By the way, has your true form grown this big already? Keith asked, scrutinizing Bells once more. How could that be? Belser shook his head, then added, "However, we Saiyans generally grow up suddenly around the age of 15 to 20. Before the age of 15, we basically maintain the appearance of a child to confuse our opponents." Crystal stopped talking and explained some key points about the Supreme Kai to Belial. Belie wrote everything down about half an hour later. "Is it almost time? Let's get going." Rumsey flew over and urged, "Let's go." Bersai was even more anxious than Rumsey. "Become a Supreme Kai quickly, even becoming a trainee Supreme God of the world is fine, then learn teleportation as quickly as possible. That way I can return to planet Vegeta. When the time comes, we'll take Bardock and Jin away from planet Vegeta and find them a more suitable planet to live on. Once Kakarot has grown to a certain level, we'll reunite them as a family, which will be a way of repaying their kindness in raising us." "Then let's go." Kirsty nodded slightly and extended her hand to Belle. Beryl obediently offered her hand. Kes took Belle's hand. Smack! Kreese tapped her scepter lightly on the ground and her body radiated a dazzling light like stars. A dazzling light quickly enveloped Kex and Belsel. Whoosh! Cruz, carrying Belie, transformed into a dazzling flame and instantly vanished into the starry sky. Rumsey, radiating a purplish-red light, followed closely behind, walking side by side with Kreese. The three of them roared off towards the realm of the Supreme Kai, another dimension. A little child with a tail sat on the pristine white ground, his eyes tightly closed, his expression somewhat serious. This little child is actually Belsar. Or, to put it another way, the Belie who had become a teenager was simply a special divine entity that he controlled remotely. A second or two later, Belie opened his eyes, a relieved smile appearing on his young face. It must be said that with the blessing of the angelic power of X, Belser felt that he was much more at ease controlling his special divine body. The previous lag issues have completely disappeared. How would you describe Belser's control over that special divine body? Just like in some online novels, you wear a helmet that connects to your brain and controls characters in a game through the helmet. The various actions of the characters in the game are all controlled by their own brains. At the same time, the character's contact with other people and even pain will provide vibrational and tactile feedback to the operator. Just like when Belser controlled the divine body and caused a huge explosion, it felt like someone had pinched my body. It hurt a lot. However, this level of pain was tolerable for Belie. With this special divine power, Belial felt as if he were playing a video game in the Dragon Ball world, able to do whatever he wanted with unparalleled freedom. Of course, Beryl still needs to continue his self-cultivation efforts. After stretching his body, Belie went to eat something and continued with a new round of training. After 3 months of dedicated practice, Beryl took a deep breath and gently raised his right hand. Smack! A purplish-red dot of light rapidly condensed in Beryl's palm, carrying the aura of death. The purplish-red specks of light appeared to be only the size of sesame seeds. However, Belie knew perfectly well that although it was only a tiny, purplish-red dot the size of a sesame seed, its power was absolutely unimaginable. This tiny thing can easily destroy a planet. Bersy grinned, feeling secretly pleased. The 10th universe, outer space. 2 streaks of light of different colors were flying rapidly toward the Supreme Kai realm. "Hey Crystal, can this kid become a Supreme Kai?" Rumsey asked, sounding a little uneasy. "The contest of strength shouldn't be a problem. After all, Bells has a physical advantage," Crystal smiled. "However, the test of the Supreme Kai's mental fortitude will mainly depend on the level of that North Kai." "Not bad, this body is immortal." Rumsey nodded in agreement, then rolled his eyes at Belie. "But you're really something, kid, to actually leave behind such a divine body. You've cultivated your real body to the point of obliteration. I have to admire your courage. Tell me, what were you thinking?" Bersy ignored him. "Hey kid, I'm talking to you," Rumsey snapped angrily. "I don't want to talk to you. I just wanted to go back and say hello to my family, that's all, but you knocked me out, I remember," Belie snorted. "Rumsey." Keith smiled at Rumsey, her eyes seeming to say, "I told you not to mess around, but you wouldn't listen. Now you've shot yourself in the foot." Rumsey hesitated for a moment, then suddenly asked, "Who are you going back to see? Your parents?" Bersy didn't want to talk to Rumsey. "You made me miss a simple farewell to Jin and Bardock. I don't want to talk to you." When you say family, do you mean Bardock and Jin? Keith glanced at Belsi and asked casually. Belser, of course, wouldn't ignore Keith's question and nodded in response. Yes. Are they your parents? Kirsty asked again. No, my parents went to fight on another planet not long after I was born and they died there. Belsi had no recollection of her biological parents, so she spoke calmly without a trace of sadness. So those two people are your adoptive father and adoptive mother. Rumsey picked up the conversation and asked. Bersai glared at Rumsey but didn't say anything. Are they your adoptive parents? Kirsty asked helplessly. Rumsey stood to the side, clenching his fists and gritting his teeth in hatred. I guess so, they've been very good to me. Beryl nodded. Kreese said no more and immediately looked at the crystal ball on the scepter, examining it carefully. After this examination, Keith turned her head thoughtfully and stared at Belle. Is this even possible? Due to staff negligence, Bels and that Saiyan named Raditz were confused. So the woman I rescued, Ms. Jin, was actually Beryl's biological mother. No wonder Ms. Jin wrapped her tail around my arm when she fainted. Moreover, Beryl is currently unaware of this matter. Ms. Jin and Mr. Bardock only learned of this news today. Everything happened at once. Should I tell Bercy about this now? Never mind, I'd better not say anything more. Now that he's said it, who knows how much he might hate Lord Rumsey? Moreover, it's best if Jin tells him this in person. Rumsey's expression shifted. He had intended to tell Belie about the destruction of planet Vegeta but felt it wasn't appropriate to say it now, so he swallowed the words back. I'm about to run for Supreme Kai, isn't it just asking for trouble by bringing this up now? Furthermore, I've already had Kirsty help you save your adoptive parents. And besides, if it weren't for me, you might be dead today. But speaking of which, did you actually practice the destructive technique I told you to cultivate? Rumsey asked again. Beryl glanced at Rumsey, then, realizing that remaining silent wasn't a good idea, paused for 2 seconds before saying calmly, I haven't cultivated. Rumsey was stunned for a moment, completely bewildered. Well, isn't the well in your sentence a bit redundant? Rumsey snorted. Not superfluous, Beryl replied calmly. What Belser really meant was that his divine power did not allow him to use destruction. After all, a divine body exists in the form of divine power, and what it releases is divine power, which is not in the same realm as destruction. Kid, you're just being stubborn, Rumsey snapped angrily, not bothering to argue with Beryl too much. Universe 10, Kaioshin realm, Supreme Kai Guasu sipped tea from his teacup. Beside him knelt a young man with green skin, silver hair, delicate features, and a cold gaze. But this person behaved with utmost respect. Upon seeing that Kvass had finished his cup of tea, the young man immediately stepped forward to refill his cup. King Zamasu of the North Kai, Guas looked at the green-skinned young man with a smile. Yes, Supreme Kai. Zamasu immediately knelt and bowed. Don't be shy, get up, Guas said with a smile. Yes. Zamasu nodded respectfully, stood up from the ground but still bowed. For King Kai, the Supreme Kai is their highest superior. Moreover, he is the supreme god of this universe. As the king of the Kai, one must naturally treat the Supreme Kai with utmost respect. What business does the Supreme Kai have with me? Zamasu asked somewhat nervously. So, interested in becoming a Supreme Kai? Jevaz asked with a smile, taking a sip of tea. I wouldn't dare, I had no intention of usurping the throne. Zamaz was startled and knelt before Guaz again, cold sweat pouring down his face. Jevaz, haha, you're quite the comedian, Jevaz laughed. Let me tell you the truth. I've reached retirement age and will be applying for retirement soon, so I'm planning to find a suitable successor to become the new Supreme Kai. Since you've developed the Northern Universe quite well, the initial plan is to make you one of the successors to the Supreme Kai, that is, an apprentice Supreme Kai. Upon hearing this news, Zamaz's eyes lit up and he was secretly delighted. Zamaz felt that happiness had come too suddenly. Thank you, Supreme Kai. Zamasu immediately bowed in gratitude, but don't get too excited yet. Soon, an angel will bring another candidate. You two will compete fairly, each undergoing an assessment in strength and mental fortitude. Guaz spat out a tea leaf and said to Zamasu, I think you have a greater advantage in both aspects. Yes, I will do my best. Zamaz's expression was solemn, but his eyes revealed a hint of contempt. Universe 7, Yadrat. Jin rubbed her head, slowly opened her eyes, and quickly looked around the strange room she was in. Where am I? Am I dead? Jin tried to recall what happened before she fainted. Immediately afterwards, the image of that beautiful female Saiyan appeared in Jin's mind. Who is that female Saiyan? I've never seen her before. Did she knock me out? Jin felt very strange and stepped out of the room. This is a yellowish-brown planet with a golden sky above it. Jin was so captivated by the brilliant sky that she was momentarily stunned. Welcome to Adelaide. Just then, an alien with blue skin, a round head and short stature with two pointed onion-like horns on its head stepped forward and greeted Jin in a friendly manner. Adelaide? Jin was taken aback, raised an eyebrow, and then looked a little confused. How did I end up in Adreta? I've heard of this planet. It is said that Yadret is quite far from planet Vegeta. Frieza's army seemed to intend to conquer this planet but later cancelled the plan for unknown reasons. But how did I end up on this planet? Moreover, the person in front of me does indeed look like an alien from the planet Adelaide. My name is Pabala, nice to meet you. The alien extended a friendly blue hand. Ah, hello, I'm Jin. Jin quickly shook hands with Pabala. Judging from your name and appearance, you're a Saiyan, aren't you? Pabara smiled as he scrutinized Jin. I've been waiting for you here for a long time. Jin looked completely bewildered, unable to understand what he was saying. Follow me. After saying this, Pabala started walking towards a deep mountain forest.